Good evening, welcome to Fantastic Dimensions. Tonight we are playing Traveler, and I get the pleasure of playing today instead of running the game. So I will hand it straight over to our illustrious game master. I don't know what you call him, Traveler, but yeah, John Lamb.
Greetings. We're going to be doing classic old school LBB, or Little Black Book Traveler, the original from 1977. It's more of a true nostalgia rather than the old school revolution or renovations or anything like that. This is actual old school basic out of the Little Black Book. Later, we're going to be doing some shotgun games to include other people, which will include all the other types of characters that you can bring in. But this is the basic, bare bones, classic. If you're compared to D&D, it'd be the fighter, the thief, and the magic user. This is the basic. So basically what they did is each character, we did each three already, and part of the process of Traveler, which is a lot of fun, is it's a life path. Everybody goes through the part of from being a child up to the point that they want to retire from civil service or from career service and want to go on and do their own thing. And the reason they can do this in this far future is because humans live to be 175 to 200, and they have a wide extended middle age. So while you might be 60 in actual years, physically you're 30. You'll be scarred and beaten up and bruised and so forth like that, but you're still 30 in physicality. You're able to do what you can at 30. So everybody does a minimum of 6 tours of service, and they go off and do what they're going to do. So we have 3 individuals already. 2 are completely done. We just finished up Ian's. I'm going to go over his details of his character to give you a general idea of how the characters are built and how they get to their retirement, which is the money that they're paid for doing their service. And then we'll continue from there. Your statistics are listed as a UPP, or a universal personality profile. And Traveler is forward thinking or favorable to nerds because they love math and science. So instead of having your stats listed as a classic strength, this, and this, they list it as numbers and letters. The numbers go from 1 to 9, and then A for 10, B, C, D, F, up to 15. So when you look at your numbers, it's like a little series of numbers off of a Social Security number or something. And this would be something you would enter into like if you wanted to be repaired at a medical facility, you'd slip your little card in and it would read your UPP. So for Ian, we have strength, dexterity, endurance, intelligence, education, and social standing. And his numbers are the following. He has an 8 and a 12, which is a C. His endurance is a 10, which is an A. His intelligence is a 12, which is again a C. His education is an 8. And his social standing is a 7. Now, the way that you build your stats in this game is 2d6. And traditionally you would roll, but having very low stats is a demoralizing thing because it makes it hard to survive, and it doesn't really reflect being a PC. So what I have always late 70s is 6 plus a d6. So having an 8 for strength or an 8 for education or a 7 for social standing is not low. It's low as far as PCs are concerned, lower, but it's mid-range or right at the cusp of being high and low for the entire population. So that makes player characters pretty much at least average, if not better. His skills came from choosing a career path, and your career choices are, in this stage, Marine, Navy, Army, Scouts, Merchants, or others. The other ones are self-explanatory. The others are everybody who's not in one of the services. So you could be some nefarious gangster type. You could be a smuggler. You could be a private person that just collects and sells spices. You don't have to be a bad person, but they're typically rough and ready. If you were to compare it to Star Wars, Han Solo would have been an other. And here's his list of skills that he got from doing 6 tours with the Scouts. Scouts come with a high reputation because it's difficult to survive, because they go out with these little tiny ships out in the middle of nowhere searching for minerals, places for new colonies and so forth like that. He did 6 tours with the Scouts, 3 with the Merchants, and 2 with the Navy. He achieved the highest rank that he got was in the Merchants as a 4th grade officer. And he got his skills, his highest skill is Jack of all trades 3. Jack of all trades 3 is effective because the most that you can apply to a skill you don't have is 1. So although he has Jack of all trades 3, it works in tandem with another skill, or it allows you to have 1 in anything. So it allows you to get by. You don't have a vac suit skill, you do with Jack of all trades because you can get by with it. He has Jack of all trades 3. He has navigation 2. So his highest score that he could employ himself is a navigator, and a 2 is good. And then his other ones are all listed as 1s. So they would be pilot, computer, electronics, gunnery, which is not firing personal guns, but using the big guns on the ships, medical, vehicle, blade, and gun. He also got one that doesn't count as a skill. He improved his statistics by 1 with his dexterity. It boosted his dexterity up higher. His dexterity is actually quite high. When he mustered out, when he retired from the service, he ended up with an item of particular worth. And when we say credits, credits are dollars in today's economy. So he has a single item of his choice. He decides what it is. It's a tangible thing worth 50,000 credits, $50,000. And the reason that you have this item, it could be something like a pearl or a gem or a watch or even a gun or something like that. It's something of tangible value that is something that you would carry around with you. It's kind of like the old earring that the pirates would use because it was their gold. That's what they would use. So if things come to worse, you can trade this thing off for favors, or you can actually trade it in for cash when you don't want to deal with digital. So let's say you're dealing with something that's pretty nefarious and you don't want to be tracked, you would use your item. His digital credits, what he got for retirement, was 210,000 credits. That's what he has on his digital card, his UPP code. When he puts it in, he has that. So if he went in for medical treatment, he would put his code in and it would have that available. So he would be able to cover his own medical or his ship travel or purchasing or whatever he wanted to do. And he also has, we actually have to change one thing. We didn't do this. If you go back up to your education, it is now a 10. It's an A because you got +2 when you mustered out. You basically got a college degree when you retired. So your education, okay, yeah, your education is not an 8. It's an A. It's a 10. We needed to add that one little boost thing. We finished his character up just before we started. In addition to his retirement, he also has 3 low passages. Low passage are chits, little markers that, in this case, you could go to any ship, regardless. It could be like a FedEx ship, a postal ship, a luxury liner. It could be anybody, and you show your low passage, and you're guaranteed a seat if they have a seat. Now, that's not a luxury berth or anything like that. It's just you're guaranteed to get in, and you don't have to pay anything. And he has 3 of those, and of course, you can upgrade it. So if you went on board, let's say Han Solo's ship, he would be able to turn that chit in for money later. And if you wanted to upgrade to a room, if you had a room, he would use his credits. So it'd be like 1,000. So you give your low passage, you pay 1,000, and you get a full luxury suite, that sort of thing. And that's basically the process of making a character. It's actually pretty quick and easy when you look at it after the fact. But it's interesting because your stats help you survive the process. Go ahead.
I also got a blade and a gun, right?
A blade and a gun. Skill. Those were skills.
Oh, those were just skills. I didn't get the items. Okay.
Everybody's gonna have items. We're gonna go to. Oh, cool. We're gonna do everybody's items at the same time.
No problem. Sorry.
I was gonna address the classic thing when someone says, "Hey, traveler," they love to regurgitate the saying that everyone can die in character creation. There is a chance to die in character creation, just like there's a chance you die going to the store. It is extremely rare. It's very hard. So on 2d6, if you join, say, the Marines or the Scouts, which are difficult to survive, the one because you're in combat all the time, and the other because you're going out in the middle of nowhere with no resources. So you're going to go off in the middle of space with nothing but, you know, some meals and some water and try to survive. So they're hard to survive. But if you have a high intelligence, if you have a good strength, you have a good endurance, whatever the statistics that are required for that service, if you have them, you have bonuses of 2 or 3. So if you have to survive on a 7 with 2d6 and you're properly prepared, you have +3. So the chances of you failing are as a 2, 3, and a 4. So it's really not that hard to survive. Now, if you go to create a character that has very low stats and you want to throw yourself into combat, well, if you're a 95-pound weakling and you're going into combat and you re-enlist to do it again, well, then you're just, you know, playing Russian roulette. So it's completely up to you if you want to survive. If you want to go to the merchants, it's really easy to survive. You know, you need a 5 or better to survive, and you get bonuses. Anyway, moving on. So basically, we have 3 characters. We have Ian, who primarily did his time with the Scouts, and Scouts come with a strong reputation. So typically when someone comes in, they have Scout identifiers, Scout badges. It's a badge of honor that you would wear, you know, kind of like the brown coats you would have for Serenity or Firefly. Everyone would know a Scout by their tattoos, by their markings, whatever. If they went into a bar, they never have to buy their drinks. Everyone's going to buy Scouts drinks. Typically, if you go into like a Scout favoring port, you don't have to pay for berthing. They're going to upgrade everything for you. It's a badge of honor because it's hard to survive. And typically, the other thing is if you were a Marine and you went to a Marine bar, you don't got to pay this, that sort of thing. Now, so Ian's character primarily is a Scout. He would be known as a former Scout because he did a great deal of time in the Scouts. His character is 60, but in this setting, when you have the extended age, he's basically only 30. So he's gone to college. He's had a great deal of experience. He has done a service to the community, and now he's ready to go off on his own. He's got a good amount of money and a good amount of resources and experience and reputation. So he's moving on in the world. We have Kate's character, who also did some Scout time, and I don't have her character in front of me, but she has other aspects. So I was going to let her describe her character in short. So go ahead, Kate.
So my character's name is Phoebe, and she was born to some merchant parents, but she spent most of her time initially working with the other, and she has her highest skill is blade, followed by medical, electronics, mechanical, jack of all trades at 2, and then computer and vac suit at 1. She got kicked out of the merchant after 1 tour, and then she got kicked out of the other after 6. But then she mustered out of the Scouts and now is sitting rather pretty credit-wise.
Very good. And another thing to note for Phoebe's character is that her family has a good reputation having government contracts for being a merchant. And she decided early on that she wanted to deal with like contraband, and that's why she went to the others to become basically a smuggler. And what we came up with in the narrative process was that the reason she got kicked out of the other, which she got kicked out of being in a gang or, you know, being a smuggler, is because she offended a crime lord in some way. So she's actually got a reputation with the Scouts, is a good thing, but then she has an underworld reputation that could come into effect. So if y'all deal with underworld, she's got a reputation and a name and a face. So it could be a detriment or it could be an advantage depending on the situation. And now we're moving on to Ignacio, his character.
All right, so we're playing Eric James. Eric James is 54 years old in Traveler years. He was born in the nobility in Mars. At the age of 18, he was already a knight because of his family. So he was known as Eric James, Knight Postmakers von Marineris. Marineris being the Great Valley in Mars. He first chose the Navy and did 2 tours with no commission. Seeking thrills and danger, he did 2 tours with the Scouts, which he survived. After that, he started getting the feeling that he wanted to phase out of the military life, so he did 2 tours with the Merchants, got commissioned in both tours, ending as a 3rd grade officer. And after his minimum 6 tours in the service, he retired and joined the others for the next 12 years. As such, he has a few skills of the less reputable kind, although his highest skill from his days in the service is medical. And as he was doing his 2nd Navy tour, he saved the life of a young, brash, misty-eyed royal kid in suspicious circumstances. Because of the suspicious circumstances, he was not awarded a formal commendation. However, he automatically basically carried a favor with that family and had his social standing improved. As such, these days he goes by Baron Pelsmakers von Marineris. And that's Eric James.
All right, so we're going to go with, is Baron James good or Baron Eric James? How do you want to do it during game? When I call you
I imagine with the party, they would just call me like Eric or Eric James. However, whenever I meet somebody I don't know, I always say I'm Baron Pelsmakers von Marineris.
Okay. Okay, very good. And for Phoebe's character, what was the highest marketable skill besides blade?
The highest marketable skill she had is medical.
Medical, good. That's what I thought. Very good, very good. Okay, and Ian, did we come up with a name yet?
Yeah, I was just gonna type in the chat for everybody. My character's name is Sun Jian. He's of Chinese descent. I'll type it in the chat too. But
yeah,
people just call me Sun or Sunny maybe.
Okay. Sun or Sunny. And I believe you had a medical also. Yes, you did. Okay.
Yeah, I got all kinds of skills.
Yeah, you do. Now, so what we're going to do is we're building this up as we go. So the initial contract is through Hammersmith Industries, and they're a minerals and metals rights contractor, but y'all are being sent in with a supply run through the ring. And I'm going to describe the ring in a minute. And while they are minerals and metals, you're going there as medical replacements for on the other side of the ring. Now, Baron James there has a higher medical, so he's going to be actually leading the contract with Phoebe and Sunny coming up as assistants. Now, because of their scout, everybody has scout affiliations. That's a tie-in with the jack of all trades, with all the variety of skills that you got. When you come in for a contract like this, they're expecting it to be rough and ready. And you're going out in the middle of the frontier, the true frontier. When you go through the gate, it is billions and billions and billions of miles away. It's the other side of the galaxy. It's a completely different situation. Everyone's expecting you not to return. So it's high pay, very high pay. You're looking at 1 million credits when you return at a minimum. And then there's bonuses if you find other things that the corporation can use. In this case, it's minerals and metals. So if you're able to be involved in a process that brings benefit to the corporation, you gain a percentage. So it's going to be 1 million credits plus a percentage each. So they stand to make billions. So they can afford it to throw it at you. Now, Hammersmith Industries is tied in with Baron Brian James' family. So it's pure nepotism. I mean, he does have the skills, but he got the position because of who he knows and who he is related to.
The way I see it, my family is a skill.
Yeah, exactly. Now, in this case, all three of you have scout reputations, but when it comes to the three of you in the group, your time in the scouts is going to be your true reputation. And so far, Sonny has the big push with 6 tours with the scouts. So he's a scout veteran. So when he would lead into conversations and all that, it would be when you're dealing with other scouts, he would lead in and then everybody else would follow in suit. It's kind of that classic Japanese pouring sake. You never pour your own sake. The elder one gets poured first, that sort of thing. All righty. So the setting, let me go back to my event page. The setting is, I believe I said 2218. And for the last 150 years consistently, that the Earth is being refaced. So they found all kinds of industry for other people to leave. So they basically cleared out the overpopulated Earth over a period of time. And they set up all kinds of microcolonies throughout the known galaxy. This is more of a hard science setting. And what we've got is 2218. We have a Terran Federation, and corporations and families rule everything. There are governments, but governments pretty much maintain areas of property or groups of people, but the power behind it are families and nobility and corporations. Now, when we say nobility, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a rank as in like the Baron. It does mean that you have a position of power within the community. So you could be a celebrity. You could be like the #1 opera singer, or you could be a movie star, or you could be a sports celebrity, or you could be somebody who actually is of noble birth, or someone who has nobility by rank. You could be a high-ranking military officer, or you could be a high-ranking person within the management of a corporation. They all have about the same pull. Just depends on the community that you're in. If you're at a dance club, obviously the celebrity would have more. And if you were trying to cut red tape to get your ship out of hock, it'd be one of the other ones. Earth had become a showcase, and all of the best science and the minds are turned back to Earth to reclaim it, turn it back to green, reclaim the green. And what has resulted in is that Earth has become an oasis, a beautiful Garden of Eden, but it's also for the rich. So all of the poor are out trying to make money, and there's lots of money to be made. So if you go out to be a belter, you can make a lot of money, but it's like crab fishing here. There's a good chance you're going to die, and which turns the money goes right back to the corporation. So it's an angry little circle there. There's a lot of successful off-Earth colonies, including Luna, which is Mars, Luna Prime, and there's millions of people that live in Luna throughout the caves and so forth under the protective crust. And they haven't terraformed, but what they've done is they create pocket oases within the surface of the moon itself. So you would travel between tubes and go to this one little pocket, and you go to another one and another little pocket, and lots of green, lots of fresh, clean air. It's a good life if you're able to live there throughout the process. You don't have to deal with the radiation and everything. There's 13 colonies of Mars. Mars is essentially the new Earth. So the majority of the people in this setting live on Mars. There's actually 15 colonies, but the Martians have claimed 13, the number 13, as their lucky number, as their own, because Earthers felt that 13 was negative. They took it as positive. The 14th and 5th colony are Alpha and Beta rather than being a numbered colony. And they're actually on Phobos and Deimos, the 2 moons. At the floating gardens of Venus, and it's an entire, the entire colony floats within the upper thick atmosphere. And they discovered that while there wasn't any free oxygen, that the carbon and the sulfurs could be mined, and that certain plants could be genetically engineered to absorb the sulfurs and the acids, which could then in turn be mined when they become mineralized, crystallized, but they put out tons of oxygen and free water. So they're able to generate tons of oxygen and water, which is very important for any sort of space exploration and people, obviously, to survive. So you'll find that a lot of these colonies mine for or provide water and oxygen. And Venus, the colony floats on the leeward side of Venus. It never comes in direct sunshine of the sun, or it would burn up. So they have a mirror, a series of huge space mirrors that use to refract the energy back to them. Then you have the belts. The belts are your classic belter communities, and there's 100+ microstations, and each little microstation has its own little community, and they're all linked together. And the miners are more like your gold miners. Everybody is mining for themselves, and they own a piece of where they work, but they give a piece back to the community to provide logistics and support and security. And then you have the J4 colonies, which are on Jupiter, and it includes Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. So they're not actually on Jupiter itself because it's too heavy and too much radiation. So they're actually on the moons. Aquarius of Saturn, and there are 30+ microstations that are actually in the rings. The rings of Saturn are mostly water, crystallized water. So they're mining for the trace minerals and the water on the rings of Saturn. There's also a colony on Titan. There's the U7, which is another water mining colony. They're microcolonies on Uranus. That's considered the fringe. That is frontier. That is Wild West. People get killed all the time out in those colonies, and they're constantly having small rebellions and so forth. N3 are the 3 water mining colonies off of Neptune. And then there are the 9 huge space stations. And they're all within the Lagrange points. Lagrange is a term that we use for science to establish the comfort zone for humans. So a Lagrange point is a point where the radiation from the sun is what we're used to. So they try to set these stations up so that they can absorb the same amount of radiation, regardless of where they are in the orbit, that makes it comfortable for humans. And these stations are named after Greek gods. So you've got the Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Ares, Apollo, and so forth. Now, the Mars shipyards, currently at this point in time, they have 3 massive generational ships that are being finished. They're almost done. I mean, within this year, they're going to be launched into deep space, and they're going to take millions of people with them in a frozen condition. And the crews are going to rotate 1 year, and then they're going to be frozen. And people will be in a lottery. And basically, when you're frozen, you're in a matrix sort of situation, and you'll be given the choice when your lottery number comes up. Do you want to wake up for a year, or do you want to continue to live within the matrix? So you don't have to stay frozen if you don't want to. So you could be up and you could do whatever you want. You could work for the ship, or you could just wander around. And the generation ships are going to travel for hundreds and hundreds of years to far points.
When you say they live in a matrix-like situation, does that mean they live in like a VR environment?
I'm sorry, can you say again?
Do they live in like a virtual environment, virtual reality? Or
Exactly. I mean, you don't gain anything more like for skills per se, but you could keep your current skills, in fact, or you could live an alternate lifestyle, or it's basically a fantasy world. It could be game player 1 ready. You know, you could be doing crazy stuff, or you could just be living a normal life out in the pasture, working a garden or tending bees, but it's a virtual setting. It could be anything you want, and you can float back and forth between. And it's not one of those things where you die and that you die for real. Basically, your story would end and you'd have to make a new story. It's just things to keep your mind active. Almost done. And then we got, we are to the point of the Explorer Corps. Now, just this year, probes from the Explorer Corps ships, Lewis and Clark, the pair of ships, found evidence of ancient technology off of Pluto. And what they found was on the far side of Pluto, in the crust and in the dust, was ancient technology, ancient technology. And when they started excavating these pieces out, they were huge pieces that were obviously some sort of ring. And it looks like, for no other explanation, as if Pluto had become a magnet and drew the ring to it, and it crashed into it. As they excavated these pieces out and took them off of the planet, got them out of the gravity well, they started lighting up without any sort of initiation, and they started self-repairing, and then they engaged themselves, and they linked together, and they created this huge ring. And then the ring powered up. And it is a stargate, an enormous stargate. It's big. It's easily 2 miles across, and it's on all the time. And they have begun sending probes through all the corporations and the scouts. Primarily the Scout Corps is involved in this, and the scouts are sending in scouts constantly. And they have been returning. And when they return, there's no point of identification of where it is. So where it comes out, it's consistent. It's not changing. It's going into a dark space. There's very limited planetfall on the other side, but there are tons and tons of asteroids and small rocks, and there is a habitable planet within short range. And when I say short range, the ships that we have now, there's no warp, there's no transwarp or anything like that. They're not on hyperdrive. It's traditional drive. It's advanced. So in context, if you were on Earth and you wanted to go to Mars, it'd take you a day, maybe a day and a half. You want to go to the moon, it takes you a couple hours. So to get to this planet takes a couple weeks once you go through the gate. So most of the ships that are going in there are going there on purpose to find resources and explore and discovery and so forth. The gate is heavily guarded. It's protected at all times for terrorist action. There's a big push amongst religious groups that it's some sort of sign. So most of the Marines are in the area, the Navy's in the area protecting it. And your characters are coming into it with your ship. And I was going to put the picture of the ship up on our group chat, which you people won't be able to see, but just take my word for it. It's a cool ship. I'm pulling it up now. Basically, it is a refurbished scout ship that has been, I moved it over to ships. Hold on. It's a refurbished scout ship that has been converted over into a medical survey ship, and it is on our main group page. And basically it looks like a big giant ambulance for no other intents and purposes, and it's loaded to the gills with medical supplies. And basically they've got the contract, Hammersmith's got the contract to provide for any sort of injury. They have built a hospital on the other side, and that's what the ship's doing, is resupplying the hospital. Now the second trip that's to come after you is full of personnel, and it's to pull the personnel out of the hospital and bring them back because they've already been there for a while. And again, they're expecting to get $1 million apiece if you do the full tour, plus any sort of benefits that come from shared resources that come from the tour. So we find yourselves on your hospital ship, which doesn't have a name. It has a number designation. You can definitely call it whatever you want. We have a Baron in charge. There's a half dozen people on board that are not with you. You are comfortable with them. They're just scrubs. They're 2 pilots, a couple mechanics, a couple stewards to take care of the operation of the ship. You people don't have any direct daily requirements as far as the ship. You're just basically not in cold storage. You're just doing what you're doing. And so when we reach this stage, before we get to this, is there anything that you wanted to do as far as characters wise before you go on to the other side?
The one thing that I would have told the party is that since we know each other and we're friendly, that they can call me Eric or Eric James. But in the presence of others, when I'm trying to pull my nobility, they should address me as Baron, so as not to give the wrong impression to the others.
Right. Good call. Now everybody's got basic clothing. When and if anything comes down to it, and it's considered combat, you're going to be wearing a uniform that has the effect of cloth. And cloth in this isn't just standard cloth. It has some benefits to things attacking you and so forth. You get some advantages. Reflect is something that would refract laser weapons if that was the case, but you're not in that sort of situation. And mesh is more of a thick ring, sort of ceramic ring sort of thing that would be for combat if you were going to deal with knives and so forth. But again, y'all are medical personnel. Now you do have access, and it is fully acceptable to carry both a melee weapon such as a blade, a knife, or a short machete type thing. The only people that would carry swords would be Marines. Marines are expected to carry swords even when they retire, or nobility. Now, nobility would not carry a broadsword or anything like that. They would carry like a saber. It would be a fine foil or a rapier or something like that, and it more dictates class rather than weapon capability. But they can carry it if they want. It's a badge of duty, as it were. Now, anyone can carry a pistol, a personal pistol, and that can be your standard revolver type or an automatic pistol. Just imagine a futuristic version of what we have today. And the only thing is that it wouldn't be any like no rocket pistols or anything like that, because you're in a ship. You wouldn't be able to carry anything that's going to cause you to lose atmosphere. It's expected that you never draw your pistol unless you're actually in combat. Dueling is an acceptable way to deal with arguments, but killing somebody without giving him warning is still murder. So if you use your pistol or your knife in a duel, you have to initiate it as a challenge and give them the opportunity to give you reparations, or accept that they insulted you and take the apologies, or to return a duel. So on your person, you can have a knife, a small sword, or a rapier, if that was the case, if you wanted to have the royalty aspect, and a pistol of some sort. On your personal effects that you would carry with you, you could carry, if you wanted to, because it is going to be a dangerous place, you could carry a rifle or a shotgun. The shotgun would be loaded with not necessarily non-lethal, but would be rubberized pellets, so that it wouldn't cause breakage in the atmosphere. Any of your bullets and so forth, that would again be breakaway, where they completely just shatter into nothing on impact, or rubberized. Just keep that in mind. You could carry non-lethal. Non-lethal would be some sort of taser or something like that. So just keep that in mind. Anything that your character would have, logically, they would have. And if that is all we are at, we're going to start the process. Anything before we go?
Just with regards to my valuable item, the 50,000 credit item that I had from retirement.
Yes.
Is there... I was just thinking of having like maybe some kind of a strange like alien star chart or something like that. Maybe would that be okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fine. That would be we could say that it was because you had that extensive time in the Scouts, that on Pluto itself there's some sort of, now when we say star chart, it might be a chip, might be a crystal, not necessarily a piece of paper.
Sure. Yeah, of course.
So some sort of information, and there aren't very many of them, and no one may even know that you have it, and it may not be terribly complete or anything, or it would be worth millions upon millions. So it might be a piece. It would be more logical to be a piece of a chart
Yeah.
And just the fact that it is ancient, Forerunner has the value, whether the information has any value or not. And I believe the other two had items also. We had to determine what they were.
Correct. So I was thinking. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say hers is probably some sort of gem. Likely, I don't want to say like the Hope Diamond, but like a Hope Diamond equivalent.
How much was it worth?
Just 5,000. So maybe not quite the Hope Diamond, but you know, she likes to think that it is.
How about something that is a replica of something that is worth millions and millions, but it's a really good replica?
Okay. So we'll do
Go
a
ahead.
replica of the Hope Diamond. That works
Sure.
for me.
Ignacio?
So does this item have to be related to my service, or can it be related to my 12 other years?
It could be anything. It could be a family heirloom in your case.
Okay. So I would like this item to be some sort of identifier with a like far-reaching kind of criminal organization, like a space mafia. And what it would be is basically this man is a friend. That's what it would mean, like when presented.
Oh.
You know, give him the time of day, you know, grant him a meeting or something like that, small favor, that kind of thing.
All right. So like
a Nardos disc in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, an item of passage. Like if it came
basically,
up, you could.
Yeah.
It's a favor. It's a favor paid forward. Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. So if it came down to a life or death situation and it was a criminal element, you could put that forward, and they would be able to take that and trade it into that family for 50,000 credits at least. So
right.
So if the situation was worth 50,000 or less, then that would do you a lot of good. Okay, so you're on your ship, the great ship Lollipop, and you're carrying through, and you're coming to Pluto, and the three of you, being veteran spacers, are not going to be amazed by the situation, but it is spectacular. It'll always take your breath away in the context that you were all scouts for a reason. You like the unknown. You appreciate the mysteries. So when you see it, even though you've seen it before, it's spectacular. It's just an enormous ring, and the pieces are in constant movement. So while the ring is all a solid ring, the piece in the number 3 spot is slowly shifting to the number 7 spot, and the number 7 is shifting to the 13. And pieces are actually traveling across the gate to another piece. So it's constantly in movement. And the theory is that it's a perpetual machine. And in the process of doing this, each piece builds up so much energy being next to another piece that it now needs to be near another piece to continue the catalyzation. So like piece number 3 needs to go to position B, and then this needs to go over here. So they're constantly in movement. So that's the one thing that they have to be aware of. They have to keep track of it. And there are people that just monitor, like air traffic controllers, they're just monitoring it. And so far they haven't been able to figure the pattern out. So the pattern is in the millions of potential categories. So you know, they could theorize it all they want, but they still haven't figured it out. And they've got AIs that are cranking through it, trying to formulate why and when the next one's going to go. And I would assume they're close, because millions isn't that hard for an AI, but for people to rationalize, it's just a process of building its own power. So it's constantly moving, constantly changing. So as you approach, there's hundreds of ships, and you have to go through a series of security measures and so forth. And even with the contract with the Hammersmith Industries, you still have to go through all these. So you're constantly being boarded, and your reputations aside, doesn't matter. They are checking every square inch. So your ship is crowded with people, and you're being escorted on either side by actual pilots, like tugboat pilots bringing you in. So you're no longer under your own power. And they're basically putting you in the queue so that you can go through the gate. Now,
I'd like to say that our ship is not the good ship, Lollipop. Is everybody okay with the name Hermes?
I like
Yeah,
it.
that works for me.
Hermes works.
Okay.
The Hermes. All right, we're traveling through with the Hermes, and the Hermes is a third in queue. You're waiting your turn. And basically, even though they know that everybody comes back, I mean, people have been lost on the other side, obviously, but you can go through and come back. It's not a restrictive thing. They've even done ships at the same time because it is 2 miles across. They've gone through and haven't had any problems. So there haven't been any issues yet. But they still are very particular. It's not just constant traffic. They put one through, make sure it gets through, another one comes through, so forth like that. So you're waiting your queue, basically just like being at the airport waiting to take off. And it's just bright blues and purples, and then you'll see surges of energy between it. And that's the one thing that they have noted is that when there is a big surge, they know one of the big pieces is going to shift. There's a big surge, and then a big piece lets go, and it starts moving to another section. But again, 2 miles across, hardly any of this really affects it unless it carries through. Yeah, the good ship Lollipop. It was actually spelled out with letters and numbers, so that it was just funny. It was just a play on words. It was just to get people's attention for the game. Anyway, so when you reach that point that you're going through, everybody's in lockdown. You have to be secured in your seat. You can't walk around. You go through the gate. Nobody's been through the gate yet. This is the first time for all of y'all. So when you go through, the sensation is something that is unique, which again would appeal to all three of you being former scouts. You basically lose your sense of self. You go through it. I would imagine it would be like on a major dose of LSD. It's just
my parents are going to be so jealous,
right? As you go through the process, you lose yourself and you forget where you are, and you see the ring as it is, but from the other side, as if you're watching yourself come through. So it's kind of an out-of-body experience. The ship all around you warps, and you lose all sense of senses, and you smell colors, and you see sounds, and all the rest of it. So yeah, you lose track of everything, and everybody was strapped in. That was the whole point, because they knew what was going to happen. And when you come out the other side, there's a point of recovery. So everybody's prepared. They gave you your shots before you came through. And when you get to the other side, another ship ties up, other personnel come on board. They make sure everybody's set, and you're recovered, and you're released from protective custody. So when you get on the other side, space is very different. It's not like green or anything like that. It's all black. There's just so much nothingness. It is the great void, which again would make anybody nervous, and give scouts a point of anticipation, because now you kick into your natural processes. This is what scouts were made for. So this is a welcome opportunity for all three of you. So when you look out, there's a few points of light, and you knew what you were shooting for is the one, and it's a yellow-green sort of sun that you're heading for, and it's going to be a 2-week trip at normal speed, which you're going to do normal speed. And there's some other ships waiting to go back to the other side. Nothing, no great battleships or anything like that, just your standard ships, nobody you would identify with. And it's just a traffic jam. So you're go through, and you basically now have 2 weeks that you are up. And what we're going to do is we're going to go day to day, and I'm just going to check. We'll do 12 days. And at the end of the day, I'm going to see if there's anything that comes up of need to address, ship catches on fire or anything like that. And
random encounter rolls. Yeah,
exactly. I've already got everything set. But if there's anything that you want to do or note in a given day, tell me now. If you say, I want to do 3 or 4 days of rest and relaxation, then that's fine. So my daily routine is going to include this. So that's what I'm looking for now. So basically, day 1, you're starting to engage drive, and you're heading towards the yellow-green sun.
How many people are on our ship? Sorry, Kate.
There's a total of 17 people on the ship, including you.
Okay, and how many of those are in cryo?
Nobody's in cryo.
Oh, right. Yeah, that was the colony ships we were talking about. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the generational ships. Yeah, the big ones.
Right. So what I would like to do on day 1, and it'll probably take me a couple of days total, is I would like to kind of go around to each member of the crew and just check like vitals, see if traveling through the gate had any kind of noticeable effects, medically or otherwise, genetically, etc., on the crew members. I probably spend a couple of days working on that data.
Is this a cover sort of thing? Or are you actually trying to pick their pockets? Or are you actually medically interested in these people?
Excuse me, sir. I'm offended by that. I'm an honorable man. No, I'm legitimately interested in collecting the data and keeping a journal of it.
Okay.
You know,
very good.
My parents were scientists, so.
Very good. Okay, so what we're going to do is you have medical 1, but you have Jack of Trades 3. And the way that we always played this is because Jack of all trades, you can only use 1 point towards something you don't have. So what we did is we considered any 2 points of Jack of all trades could reflect to 1 advantage to something you already had. So what you can do is you could take your medical 1, and if you make a Jack of all trades roll, you can apply another point and have a medical of 2 for that situation.
Okay, how would I make a Jack of trades roll?
You need an 8 or better, but you have a 3. So you have an 8 or better plus 3.
So I roll 2d6 and add 3. I need an 8 or better.
Yes.
I got exactly an 8.
Okay, so for this case, for what you're doing for this entire period of time, you'll be able to apply it as a medical 2. So when you're doing your checks, we're gonna do each day.
Okay.
We're gonna do a medical check, and it's gonna be an 8 on 2d6, a challenge of an 8 because it's a standard challenge, and you're gonna have a benefit of 2. So 8, 2d6 plus 2, reaching an 8 or better.
Okay, you want me to roll the first one now?
Right.
Day 1. 7 plus 2 is 9.
Okay, so you had a success, and you would have found anything that was out of the ordinary. The only thing that you found out of the ordinary is that one of the individuals had something, a condition that they did not report, that was not found. And it was a deep asthmatic sort of thing that they were taking medication for. So in the process of interviewing them, or in the process of checking their blood or whatever it was, you found out that they had dosed themselves with this, and they were in fact asthmatic. It's not necessarily a thing that would be exclusionary, because it's a very lucrative thing to come over here, but it's something that you can deal with or use, you know, in context to pull a favor or something along those lines. However you want to deal with it, you can deal with it. But we're going to say this individual is, we'll say Lieutenant James. And
no relation to Baron James, no?
Nope. He was all Navy. He has no scout experience at all.
Cool. I've written it down.
So in this case right now, Lieutenant James he's not an idiot. He knows you know, and that you haven't said anything about it. You haven't disqualified him yet, sent him back or anything like that. So you would be able to pull a favor from Lieutenant James in some format if you don't report it.
I would also probably check just to make sure that whatever medication he's taking is appropriate for it, and adjust it if necessary.
It's a simple little thing. It's basically like a little air respirator type thing. It's nothing that's clandestine. It's just he shouldn't have been in space anymore.
So what I do with the information is I make sure that he's treating it appropriately, that he's actually safe to conduct his duties as long as he's taking his medication. And essentially I'm going to help him, you know, and I'm going to keep his secret for now. But of course, obviously, like you said, he will be quite aware of the fact that I know this and that I'm not using it against him, at least at this time.
Very good. Okay. The other folks?
I would like to spend at least part of most of our time traveling keeping up with my blade fighting abilities, just practice and sparring and all of that. And then I would want to maybe speak with some members of the crew and see if any of them might be recognizable to me in more of like an underworld sense.
Okay.
See if anything was brought on board that shouldn't have been that I might be able to get a cut on.
You had mentioned that you were considering going a darker route with the knife direction.
Yes.
I will say that the ship isn't very big and it is
Okay.
loaded to the gills with stuff. So finding a place to practice your knife is going to be tough unless somebody's covering for you. So let's do that first. Let's see if there's somebody nefarious already. So you didn't end up with, did you end up with any underworld skills like carousing or anything like that?
No.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a general perception. So it'll be an 8 or better. And if you think you have a skill that you can apply to it, then you would work that in narratively.
Let me see. I mean, I have.
Or if you have a statistic that allows you to apply, like say for instance, Baron James wanted to apply his social skill into a social setting.
Mm-hmm.
That is in fact a skill because his stat is so high. So if you have something you can apply to that, you can. And remember, you can play off of the fact that you have reputation. You personally have reputation for being in the gangster sort of setting and as a scout. So y'all can play the scout card on the one hand, or you could play the darker nefarious smuggler type card. Just keep that in mind. But once you play one, you know which one you're going to play first, you know, you personally. So go ahead.
She has a rank B in intelligence. I imagine she's pretty smart at being able to kind of figure out, you know, who to.
Absolutely. And just for shits and grins, that I had not checked this before. Let me do a quick roll. And there are 3 females beside yourself.
Okay.
And Lieutenant James was male, by the way. Okay. So there are 3 other females. Not that that really matters one way or the other, just letting you know, in case you were trying to apply wiles and such.
I swing either way, so it works. All right. So 8 or better, is that right?
8 or better. And in this case, we're applying your intelligence, so you get to add 2.
Oh. 6 and 4 is a 10, plus 2 is 12.
Okay. So you have successfully interviewed crew members. Now, which direction did you go? You wanted to go nefarious, right? Looking for underworld types?
I do want to look for underworld types, but under the guise of I want to make sure we're all on the up and up, unless I find someone, in which case I'm like, oh, by the way.
Okay, so you went more of the, did you go the scout route or the medical route?
I'll go scout route.
Okay, scout route, and it was successful. Okay, so we're going to say you found 2.
Okay.
That have a rough and ready reputation. Now, they went more of their traditional route as far as they were others to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
They came from a foundation of other, which you did also. Y'all have some experience with each other, so you'll know that Phoebe actually started working when she was 12 on her parents' ship, and it was all undercover and under wraps. So she actually got to do a tour because the way she had formulated her character, it was younger, and what we had actually done was apply to more danger. So she actually had a more of a chance to die in that first round, her first tour, and she did not. So these folks also went the traditional route, and they were others for quite a while, and then later went into the merchants, and then they developed medical and logistics and so forth like that. So as far as their backgrounds, neither one of them are criminals, because there were background checks to get into this, but they know the hand signs and they know the terminology, and they speak Beltahea, and they know all the words. So those are people that you can commiserate with, and they definitely would be the types that, although they're clean and proper, they would punch you in the nose. So those are the types. So we're going to say, we're going to go with last names. We're going to say Jones is the male and Khan is the female.
I almost made a very large reference.
Okay, so both of those would be qualified with knives, and they would be interested in a flat blade type of stuff where you have no edge. You put tape on it, whatever you're going to do. And then, so one would look out and you could practice with the other, and like kids playing in the street, you know, when a car comes, oh, hey, step back and then go back. So between the three of you can entertain yourselves with that sort of talk and do your little secret handshakes and so forth. All right, Ignacio.
So the first day after the jump, I would retire to my quarters, ask not to be disturbed, and nobody knows what I did there.
Okay.
The jump affected me quite a bit, and I was having some flashbacks and remembering some of the bad stuff that happened during my service. So I spent some time by myself, you know, calm my nerves, maintain my composure. Now, this Lieutenant James, I want to say, if you'll allow it, John, that I was the one, because of my medical and my less savory background, I was the one who forged his
Nice.
Examination, and that's how he got in, and nobody
Very
knew
good.
about the asthma.
He did
So
not. He did not turn you in. So he
right. So he owes me a favor.
Right.
And he's a little bit younger than me, and I basically told him to inform me about anything that is happening on this ship and with this crew that nobody tells me directly or puts it in the log. So he's my guy.
Okay.
Now, I would find out either through him or because it's in the log that Sonny is doing all these examinations, and I would see the reason in that. So I would actually, on the second day, ask Sonny to examine me as well, because I want to see if the jump affected me in any medical fashion.
Okay. Other than what you noted, and other than what he's found or what anybody else has found, the effects are not permanent unless you're an unstable individual. Nobody freaked out. Nobody had psychosis, and they would have been vetted before they went. So early on, you know, through the reports that y'all had to read for the medical side, there were problems. Some of the people that went through did freak out, and they were typically combat veterans. So your PTSD when you went through there re-engaged. So those types of folks were already borderline anyway. And nobody of a strictly straight up nefarious setting has gone through. So I would imagine a handful of thugs and gangsters, if you put them through, would also react poorly. So the more aggressive people, is what I'm saying, became more aggressive and kind of lost themselves when they went through. None of y'all are in that situation, so you didn't have any issues. So when they put Marines through, when they put security forces through, they're young, or they're extremely stable, or they have been stabilized. Someone that, like some old colonel that actually is some badass, they would have kept him in cold sleep through the process and then woke him up when he came through the other side. So that is the only thing that people have to worry about. The three of y'all do not have to worry about that. So we don't even need to roll for it. He will check you out, and you didn't have any problems.
Other than that, there's two things I'd like to do on the way there. One of them is that I would instruct some other member of the crew to check the ship itself to see if there was any kind of, you know, and do a very, very thorough check. I want to see if the jump affected the ship in any way.
Sure.
And then I would mostly, what's the state of like VR in this world? Like, is there something like a holodeck or something like that?
There's no holodecks. It is there's not enough room in a ship like this. Now, if you were on a luxury liner, or if you were on a big personal yacht or something like that, then for sure there would be. But in this case, it's strictly you put on the full visor, and you actually would have a jack, a small jack, a subdermal jack, and you jack in.
What I would do is that I would actually do this in my quarters in private, and I would jack in, and I would do a lot of training because I get the feeling that this is the real ship right here, and it's been a while since I've done any service. So I would practice both, you know, medical and basically combat ready, and I'd spend a lot of time by myself doing that. I'd be getting regular reports from, you know, I'd be reading the logs checking with the crew, and checking with Lieutenant James as well.
You can get the reports while you're in, while you're jacked in. It'll come across as, you know, emails, or it'll come across as digital information, however you want it to be. It could be as a book or watching a video or something like that. He jacks in his quarters.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, nasty. All right. All right, so we're going to carry on with this. Let me know, because I am going to go to day 7. And if you don't do anything different, we're going to continue on as it was.
After the couple of days of medical examinations are done, and I would have tried to have checked everybody, including Phoebe and obviously the Baron. The only other thing I would have done probably then was I'd be checking out navigational readings of the area if I could get access. If not, then I'd try to pull my my scout rank as a basically kind of a leverage to get access to them. I'm just collating scientific data basically. So after the 2 days of medical data is done, I'd be going back to like star charts and navigation charts, etc.
Yeah, nothing will be restricted to you at all. You don't have to pressure too much. Again, think about old school John Wayne, right? If John Wayne, as the characterized John Wayne, walked into a room, the room stops and they look over and, hey, let me buy you a drink. That's how almost all your veteran scouts will be treated. And as long as you did a tour, it's like, you know, yeah, I did a tour in the scouts. They're like, hell yeah, I did 6 tours in the scouts. Dude, you got some stories, and they're gonna want to get all that stuff from you. So it's nothing that you have to play as in a hard play. Now, if somebody was like, if somebody had like a stolen valor, you know, they got kicked out of the scouts, or, you know, they did 1 tour and they're claiming more tours than they should have, then you can drop the hammer on them as a veteran and they will acquiesce. Nobody will stand up to that unless they're, you know, an asshole. But
cool.
Okay. So if nobody else is doing anything, day 7 comes up, and your VR is cut short, and you're requested to come to the bridge. And the bridge isn't a classic bridge. I mean, it's a cockpit, you know, because there's not a lot of room on this ship. Now, normally, if you weren't loaded to the gills, there'd be plenty of room to move around. And actually, there are other quarters, but they're loaded up with supplies. In this sort of real world, real science, hard science sort of settings, there's not a lot of luxuries. Everything is to the gills with materials. Not a lot of wasted space. And there is an alarm. It's a yellow alarm, so everybody is awakened. Everybody has general quarters. Everybody has a place to be. And because of your position as contracted leader, Baron is called in, but the other 2, everybody else is made aware of the situation. There has been a mayday called, and all maydays have to be answered. So currently, right now, you are the closest en route. Now, the mayday is coming from a direction that is 90 degrees from where you are headed, and there is nothing. There's no point of light. There's no point of reference to it, but it is definitely another ship. It's not like an alien or anything like that. There are no aliens. There have been, I will say that on Io and Titan, there is alien life. I should have said this before. There are no aliens like walk around aliens, Vulcans, or anything like that. It's just humans. But they have found microbes and worms and alien plants and algae and so forth. Small animals, nothing that could be like a pet. Just small. There is definitely evidence of alien life, and it's more like extremophile sort of stuff. Tube worms over a vent and that sort of thing. So when I say it's not alien, I mean that it's not of a cryptic nature. It is a standard. It's not from a Hammersmith industry. It's an open call or a mayday. They're not identified.
It's in deep space. It's not on a planetoid or anything.
Right. It is. It's showing 3 weeks from your current position, but you're the closest to it at your current speed. Now you can increase speed, and when you increase speed, you challenge your resources and you challenge your skills. Because normally we don't check piloting skills, but when you're pushing your engines and you're pushing your people and so forth like that, you'd have to. So you can cut it down by half. So you could be there in 7 days. 9 days. If you want to push it. But every day you push, you're challenging your engine, you're challenging your pilots. So we're on to Baron. Baron, this is your call. Do we continue on with the contract? Because you're definitely
are we expected on us, like, will this make us late? Are we expected by a certain date?
You are for sure. I mean, and there's a contract, and there would be financial penalties, and the people that are there, you're not in a personnel exchange per se, but any supplies that you have that are critical on the other end would be double and tripled in price. So it would come out of the general account for everybody here, but you're talking about thousands, not millions. So like if you were supposed to deliver a vaccine and they still had vaccine, you're going to be charged like 20,000 credits as a crew if you're late, but you have to answer Mayday. So one way or another, you have to make a decision. You can either continue on and tell another ship to do it if you can find another one. You have to come up with a reason of why to turn down a Mayday.
So what does this message look like? Like, is it a voice message? Is it just an automated, like, Mayday code, or?
It's a data stream, and it can be put into a visual, or it can be an auditory. It can be a text. It can be however you want to receive it.
But this is like an automated message. It's not like recorded by a person. It's just somebody pushed a button and the message got to us.
Exactly.
And so if we wanted to go, like, communication goes at the same speed as the ship, right?
Communication is faster than the ship.
So
communication is basically speed of light. You're sending lasers.
So if I sent, I mean, I'm sure like all this will be calculated and shipped. Like, if I sent a message back, like, how long would it take to get to the point?
They would get it pretty damn quick if they're able to receive. Minutes.
In that case, initially I would order the ship to slow down and respond to the message. I want details, basically, like, what is your situation? That's what I would send.
Okay, you send it, and it's one of those things where you send it, and if it is received, it'll show that it is received, and it is received. And you do not get a response other than the automated distress. With the automated distress, there is identifiers with it, and it is a deep survey ship, and it's noted as the Zodiac.
What kind of crew would a ship like that hold? Like, what's the maximum?
They could hold up to 12 people, but it doesn't list the ship's manifest or the ship's crew. But it's a decent size survey ship. It's bigger than your ship, but it's built differently.
So for situations such as this, I would like call the officers in my ready room, and I would discuss it with both of you, like both of the other player characters here. And I would open the discussion by saying, it's an automated Mayday. For all we know, everybody on the ship is dead, and it's just a hunk. It's just a hunk floating through space. There's no way to know. It's a shot in the dark. So we may be losing a bunch of money here. However, if we don't do anything, we need to have an excuse. I'm open to suggestions.
And you've tried contacting them?
Correct. And I got no response. It was acknowledged that it was received, but there was no response.
I think, we're looking at making millions. And if we lose 20,000 credits for that, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Especially, I mean, if everyone's dead, then there's things to be had on that ship, more than likely. And if they're not dead, then they're likely ill or incapacitated in some way. And, we'll still get some form of reward for saving them, I'm sure.
I agree with Phoebe. Also, if something has happened to the ship, obviously something has, but there's data to be gathered, and we could find out what has happened, what's caused their distress. Is there any kind of foul play involved, etc. It might give us some information as to another challenge we may be facing here in this sector of space.
You both raise good points, and there are the salvage rights, of course, should everyone be dead.
Should easily make up for a couple of 20,000 credits
a day.
Still, nonetheless, these ships are valuable. There's a lot of parts. If nothing else, there might be supplies that we can use.
Completely agreed. You're looking at 9 days to get there, so that's 20,000 a day, and then however long it takes you to get back, and the time you spend there.
So that's about 400,000 credits total.
But a ship could be worth millions in salvage rights, millions and millions. And if they don't have anything, I mean, if they have something, then obviously it'd be worth more.
And as the lieutenant points out, I would say that information may be worth even more.
Indeed.
Especially in a place as new as this.
Yeah.
Well,
the survey ships, they're going to have something that nobody else has, for sure.
I think you've made up my mind for me. Yes, let's go see what's going on with the ship.
Okay, since the structure of your characters are not pilots and you have professional pilots, we're going to deal with the professional pilots taking it on their own, and everyone's going to have to go into a more of a secured. You're going to stay in yellow alert because you're going to be under high speed, so the torque's going to be different. They're going to have to turn off the gravity well and all that, and you're going to be under 0G. So if you have any 0G as a skill, that's when this would come into effect. If you don't have 0G, then you're going to be staying put. Now, you can apply your jack of all trades to give you the baseline of 0G. So if you have at least jack of all trade 1, and it's not really a cheesy sort of thing. I just wanted to say this. It's not a true catch-all. It basically, jack of all trades means an everyman skill. Everybody can drive a car, but that doesn't mean I have professional driving ability. I can drive a car. I can put gas in a car, but it doesn't mean I know how to make fuel. I mean, there's things that you can do, and being a jack of all trades, it means within your society, it's acknowledged that you can do a certain number of things that make sense. You can flip a circuit breaker. You can read a thing to know which breaker to turn. That doesn't mean you know how to change out a circuit breaker. Jack of all trades allow for that. So if you have jack of all trades, then you would have 0G training 1 conditionally. And that's how that works. So if you have 0G, that's when you're going to be in 0G now. So if you plan on moving about the ship, you need 0G or at least jack of all trades 1. Or you take a chance of injuring yourself. It's basically -5 if you don't have the skill.
Well, Sonny will want to get to the medical bays and make sure everything is, basically going to do diagnostics and stuff, and stock taking, etc., making sure everything is ready to go for a medical emergency when we do arrive. Okay. Also probably checking in again too with any emergency medical crew. This being a medical ship, I suppose that's probably the majority of us. I do have jack of all trades. I don't have any specialized training in 0G, but I have 3 levels of jack of all trades. So
there are 3 designated medical personnel on board, and that's the 3 of y'all. The rest of those are ship personnel and cargo people, and there's even a company man that's there that's representing the company's interest. Now, they definitely might have a medical 1 skill, but they're not rated as medical. Now, normally your ship would have 2 bays that are open for medical, but they're full of supplies. But they're in a manner that you could pull everything out and push it into the front part and make the ship undrivable to have medical space. So you're ready. You can be ready. You're packed to the gills with stuff.
Okay.
I mean, literally, you have a FedEx truck, but you have 20 loads in this truck.
Sure, I
So
got
you have room for your guy. So if the situation comes up, you have your personnel ready. You can clear everything out and have a medical bay ready to go 100%.
So what I'm doing then is making sure everything is loaded up and ready to move quickly. I won't bother with checking with the medical personnel since that's the three of us, and I've already been in the briefing. I know we're all good. And what I will do, though, is I will take maybe half a dozen of the ship crew, kind of grunts, the lower level ship crew members, and assign them to teams. So if we had 2 medical bays, you said?
Yes.
Potentially, I'll assign 3 of them to each bay so that if they get the call, they go in and they clear everything out and make sure it's open and available.
So what'll happen? Yes, what'll happen is, let's say theoretically you pulled up to another ship and you wanted the medical bays open. The space that's in the cockpit and the walkways would be cram-packed with all your stuff, and your medical bays would be open.
Of course, yep, exactly.
So if you wanted to drive away real quick, now you got to move everything back into your medical base.
That's why I'm assigning these 2 specialist teams, Alpha and Bravo. If it turns out to where we feel like we need both medical bays, then they each go to their assigned space and move the stuff. If we only need one, then they both go together to make it quicker. You know what I mean?
Okay, so if you end up using one, we're going to say that the pilot is going to stay in the pilot chair, and he's going to be locked in place. Everything's going to be packed in behind him, and he's going to have to be isolated. But, you know,
Sure.
Pilot. He's pilot.
Yeah.
Okay. So 1 bay, and you can still have a pilot. 2 bays, and you won't. Okay, so we know in the process of heading in there, heading through base, now you have the option of acknowledging that you're heading towards it and that you do not require assistance. Keep in mind, let's say that 3 ships show up. 3 ships show up, they share any survey rights. So now it becomes a little bit of greed. Do you want to do it on your own, or you want to try to call for help?
I think we should try this on our own, at least at first.
There's really not that many people. I mean, there are other ships, but they're months away because they're far out. You know, they're continuing on. They're weeks away. You're the closest one by far. There are some ships near the gate, but they are not going to deviate because they have to stay at the gate.
Yeah, I would say send out the signal that we're taking care of it.
Okay, very good. The other information that you got is that the Zodiac was a deep survey ship that was launched 6 months ago. And that's pertinent because almost all the contracts are for 6 months. So at the end of the 6 months, you're usually back at the gate, ready to go back in, or you have extended for a second contract. So their contract is at the end. It's from the Conmar Corporation, which is a mining minerals corporation from Mars. It's one of the Martian colonies. Conmar has nothing to do with your family and has nothing to do with Hammersmith. In fact, they are competitors. And that's all you've got from that. There isn't any manifests or anything like that because most of that stuff is not shared unless it has to be. They don't need to. This is the frontier, and people are trying to make money, and they don't necessarily need to report who's all on their ships. Now, if you were the same corporation, you would have that data. Just to say that. Go ahead.
Is it possible to alert the people that we're bringing the supplies to that we are responding to a Mayday situation so they at least know what's happening?
Yeah, they definitely, the equipment that is sending the information did receive the information. So they can send and receive. At least they can send the emergency and they can receive. So any information you send is making it to the ship.
I think she means our final destination, the planet that we were going to. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're fully made aware of it. And if it were just a Hammersmith Industries, then there wouldn't necessarily be charges, you know, the daily charge. But it's not. It's an open hospital, and they have contracts with other people, and they're going to have to pay their penalties and the rest of it. So that's why
you said the Zodiac belonged to Conmar Corporation.
Conmar.
Cool.
We're also out of Mars.
Cool.
So you're still going to be charged the 20, but it's just the operating. It's like paying tolls. It's just the cost of doing business. Now, if it turns into something later on, of course, you could file for a grievance, or you could file for a waiver or something like that. But right now, and that's where your admin and your forgery and your other sort of stuff would come into effect. It was when you're dealing with stuff like that. All right, so carrying on. So we're on to day 8, and we're deviating, and this is the first day of 9 to get where you're going. We're going to do a check for the pilot first. Made it easily, and we're going to check the ship, and made that easily. So the ship's doing fine. Again, this is not meant for emergency support. Now, had you had a rescue ship, the rescue ship would be a much faster ship made for this. You probably would have made it in 3 days. All right, so we're carrying on. If you're going to do anything in between, I'm just going to do a series of checks for the 9 days. And unless something else comes up, I'm going to go straight through that. You get the reception back. They acknowledge that that you're en route, and you're going to take your daily reports that you're still en route. Make sure that you're all right. They are not sending anyone your way, so keep that in mind. People are a couple weeks out if you run into any problems. Okay, so we're doing day 2. Good and good. Day 3. Good and good. Day 4. We have a pilot issue, and we will deal with that, but the ship is good. So we're going to have to come down to full stop, and we're going to add a half day. So it's going to take you 9.5 to get there due to pilot error. And it wasn't necessarily that he screwed up. It was a situation. So he had to go around some micro asteroids or something like that to avoid damage to the ship. So it just is what it is. So we're on to day 4. No problems, no problems. Day 5. There's a problem with the ship. All right, so we're going to go to the mechanics. None of y'all are mechanics of the crew, so we're going to do the mechanics that came with the ship. And they got it repaired. Cost you a half day, so it's going to take you 10 days total to get there. Day 6, no problems. Day 7, no problems. Day 8, no problems. Day 9, no problems. Day 10, problems with the pilot and the ship.
And this is on the day we arrive, yeah?
Yeah, as you're pulling in, you lose all power, and you have to reboot the system. So it's going to take another half day to get in. So you're going to come in, you're going to come limping in. So very dramatic in that last little bit. So you're going to come limping in. Now you're going to continue forward. You're drifting pretty damn fast. So you're not all stop, but when you were out of power, you're drifting in. Up ahead, again, there's no points of light. So there's no suns or anything like that. They're definitely out here, looking at rocks. And as you approach, there is a series of 3 huge rocks, space rocks. And we're talking 30, 40 miles across for the big one, 20, 30 for the next one, and 10, 15 for the other. And they're in a transitory orbit near each other. And there is evidence of the ship. You definitely can track it at this point. The navigation has caught hold of it. And it is on low power. And it is definitely the Zodiac. The beacon is heading off for the Zodiac. And you got a little bit of time. You got, basically a quarter of a day as you're creeping in, as they don't want to press the engines anymore because you have them in sight. And to be truthful, the captain's a little worried that it might be, we haven't heard any issues of it so far, but it might be, he's a suspicious type, and he's thinking pirates. So he wants to come in slow anyway. Not that it would truly matter because you don't have any guns. So
how long will it take the 2 teams to clear one of the medical bays?
They've got it down to maybe 3-4 minutes.
Okay, cool. I won't give any calls on that yet. Then.
Yeah, they'll have everybody in a cargo train, and they'll just hand one item to the next, and they know where to put everything. Everything's got its place. It's already marked with markers everywhere where everything's going to go and how it's going to stack up. The cargo master is a spatial genius, and he's got it all figured out. And they got snacks up front for the pilot in case he gets stuck. Got his pee bag. He's ready to go.
If As long as the Baron doesn't have any issue with it, I'd like to be kind of. Is there a bridge? I presume, yeah, where the pilot.
It's a small. It's not very big. It's like a two-seater a two-seater office space. You know, like a desk, about the size of a desk. It's not very much room at all.
Is there a command center or anything of that sort? I'd just like to be where the action is, where the information is as we're approaching.
This ship is basically what you would consider a shotgun design. From the front to the back, it's one straight tube. All the little spaces or rooms off the side. So if you were in engineering, which is just basically looking at the engines, and you were at the cockpit, which is basically handling the steering wheel, you can see each other. You can just stick your head out and say, here I am. So you can be standing off to the side. There's really no, you can be in the hallway.
Yep, no problem.
Yeah, everybody's within.
There's basically like the instruments that the pilot is reading. They can be like replicated a little further behind, kind of like a flight engineer kind of panel where anybody can look at it. So I would be close to that, just kind of looking at that. You know, the sensors, the instruments.
For sure.
Trying to see if there's anything that we can spot.
You know, this is hundreds of years in the future, so we can extrapolate that you can have the digital information pop up in front of you or off of a watch or a ring or anything like that. So the information's available at all times like that, for sure.
I would actually attempt to communicate again with this ship, like just one more message, like please report.
Okay. It definitely that the ship has received the information, but you're not getting a response.
I want to look at the ship visually, like through the pilot's main window. How dilapidated, what does this other ship look like? Like, what state is it in right now?
We can pull in faraway data, with the sensors and so forth, and you can see it. It doesn't look like it's cracked in half. It's not broken like an egg or anything like that. Almost all the lights are off. It has emergency lighting, the flashing and so forth like that. It doesn't. It's not knocked up against one of the rocks, so it's able to maintain its position. But other than that, it looks like it's whole but offline.
Low power, though, you said, right? So they have life support?
One would assume that is the minimal. You don't have any indications of that at this point, but that is the last thing to go is life support.
If the chip is functional but off, I'm inclined to believe it might be privateers or something similar.
Okay.
But that doesn't stop me from wanting whatever's on that chip.
So y'all are creeping in. You got less than an hour. So if you're going to make any decisions at this point, this is your last chance, because at this point, with space travel and all, you'd have to deviate or accelerate, because right now you're slowing down to make it so that you can stop at that ship. You're within an hour. So now is the last chance to make a decision with it.
If I might make a recommendation, I think we should probably board that ship, have a boarding party go aboard to investigate. What do you think?
I agree. Armed, of course, just in case.
I'd like to volunteer to go aboard.
I'll go too.
But before we go any further, there was one thing that we didn't address that I would have. I actually put it in my notes. I just found it on the outside of the ship, not accessible through the ship, but on the outside attached to the ship is Phoebe's pod. She has a one-person scout ship that she got for retirement. You can't access it from inside the ship. You'd have to get on a vac suit and go on the outside, but it is attached to the outside of the ship.
My Gladius, what is it doing here?
And the escape pods on this ship are simply, they have enough room for you to get into it. It's a tube, and you shoot off of the ship. It's not true cold sleep.
Is there any way to basically ping the ship, to get the ship itself, the other ship, to give me some information about what systems are functioning or so on?
You could. it would require a skill check. And I'm going to say the most appropriate skill. I'll tell you the most appropriate one, and you tell me if you have it. And if you don't, then I will accept a narrative of something else. So let us say the one that's going to make the most sense is going to be computer.
I have computers.
All right. I'm going to say it requires a minimum of computer 2 to do it easily.
I have computers and I have Jack of all trades 3.
All right. So make your roll for Jack of all trades. 8 plus 3.
That's going to be a 13.
Okay. So you have, what's your computer skill? 1, correct?
1, yes.
All right. So you have a 2. So you can make it without rolling.
Okay.
So what did Baron want to do?
Wanted me to ping the ship and try to get essentially the ship's computer to give us a diagnostic of the ship's system status.
Okay. From the distance you're at right now, we are committing to, I needed to know. So while you're doing that, the pilot needs to know, am I stopping or am I doing a flyby?
I'd say stop.
Yeah, I would say prepare to board, but approach slowly.
Yep. Slowly is the only way you can. Okay. So we are committed to stopping. Okay. You have made connection to the other ship. So you have interfaced with the other ship. That's what you have achieved with that action.
Okay. So then once I've got contact with that ship, I'll start trying to pull up diagnostic data on its internal systems.
All right. The ship is in an off status. It is in no life support. It has no power. Engines are cold. The only thing that it has is the distress beacon. That's the only thing that's operating this time.
Doesn't look good, Captain.
Is anything moving inside the ship? Obviously, nothing human could be moving if the life support is off, but, you know, we are out in the middle of nowhere here.
Nothing that we're aware of could be moving on board the ship. That doesn't mean nothing is. Is there, since I'm linked up with the ship, can I activate systems from here?
You can try to initiate systems from where you are. Basically, you're sitting at a terminal on the ship for all intents purposes.
Oh, no. Yeah, okay, good. Then I will try to, I assume there's some kind of a scan for, just to see if there's any kind of movement activity on the ship.
Yep. So let's go with another check. And because you're already linked to it, computer 1 is effective enough. I don't need a roll. Okay. But I'm going to take a roll at computer 1. So you do the 8 plus 1, and I have a challenge number. So you have, and it's going to be a -2. So you're at a negative. You have to make an 8 with a -1.
Okay, and I can't use my Jack of all trades to boost this. No. Okay. I fail. I got a 3.
Okay, that's not a big deal. It's just you have to continue on with what you're doing. It hasn't. You were not able to do what you wanted to do at this time.
No problem.
The way that this works is that when you have a failure of a particular action and you try it again, it's a cumulative effect. So you'll have a -1 for the same action. Now you can approach it a different way and lose the -1.
So I'll just report to the captain anyway that I'm getting some kind of difficulty, interference. I'm having trouble getting total remote access to the ship systems. I'm still linked into the terminal, but I'm unable to do a sensor sweep of the internal of the ship. Internal of the ship? Yeah, you know what I mean. The insides of the ship.
You're within 10 minutes.
Full confidence in your abilities.
All right, I'm going to say that one of the other employees, it could be anybody, Lieutenant James or somebody, actually has significant computer skills, and they're going to jump in and ask if they can take it from this point because they were already assigned to do something else. So someone else is going to take their spot if you want to give it up.
Yeah, I'll step away from the terminal and say,
okay. And fingers go flashing, and they're linked in. And you go, that's what I did. I didn't push that. I pushed this. And it was a simple one stroke, and the ship engages on the other end. The lights all light up, and it's going through its preambles. And the preambles could take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to complete the whole process because it was dead cold. So, but it is lighting up.
Good job, Lieutenant. I'll clap him on the shoulder.
Very good. Okay, so we are within 10, 15 minutes, 5 minutes. You're approaching. With the approach, I'm going to check for, because of the asteroids are in movement, I'm going to do a pilot check. 1 second. No problem. He was already going slow and cautious anyway, so I would have given him a bonus. He made it anyway.
By the time we're 5 minutes out, would names, I forgot the names, but would Phoebe be able to get her visual on the ship through the
Oh, everybody could have linked on for sure. And again, the ship doesn't look like it was damaged in any way.
So we do have like view screen monitor type things, yeah?
Yes, and again, if you don't have the actual view screen in front of you, you have a Mylar thread that you can pull out that drops a screen. We're 200 years in the future, so anything that you can imagine that would make sense is going to make sense. You could pull it up in the air and do it.
In that case, then yeah, I just pull out that screen, kind of it unfolds as I pull it out, and I just slap it up on the wall in front of me.
Sure. Yep. Absolutely. Yep, everybody's got access to that, and everybody's got a job to do. So the mechanics are dealing with the problems that were with the engines, and the people replacing them in line if they have to make the medical problems. And all of y'all are within sight of each other, but everybody's busy. And the pilot and the co-pilot are up there, and the communications, the navigations, and the cargo master is the one that's actually dealing with the locking onto the dock. That's his thing, or her thing.
Sure.
And
so it's an actual like physical lock kind of thing with a.
Yeah, they're gonna come together, and you press a button, and this one comes out, and this one comes out, and they link together, and then they tether to each other, and then you can cross over.
Cool.
What's the name of the company man on the ship?
The company man on this ship, we will say it is, let me mark it down. The company man is actually one of the females, one of the 3 females. And it's going to be Smith, actually, as in Hammer Smith. Sarah Smith, if you need a first name. And she's an administrator. She's a bureaucrat type.
So I will basically, at the last minute, I will announce that I will take part in the boarding party. And I will delegate, everybody knows exactly what to do, but should there be any kind of dispute or anybody needs to step in, I will tell them to defer to either Officer Smith or Lieutenant James.
Now, in a normal situation, if it was a full complement ship, you wouldn't be going because you're a noble. They would send over Marines or soldiers or even Navy if they had them, scouts if they had them. You wouldn't be going. But this is a different. I just wanted to throw that out there. They normally wouldn't let you go, but this is your baby, and it is a medical ship, so it makes sense.
He's pulling a captain.
Maybe it's the.
He's not supposed to go on the away team, but he's going anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe it's the jump gate, but I feel my curiosity is getting the better of me.
Right. Okay, so the docking went without issue. You're locked in. Everybody has their anticipation, but everybody's doing their jobs. They're not as interested in these things as y'all are because they weren't scout material. They were merchant material.
Something I meant to say was that since we found the ship in a dead state, I would suggest that the boarding party wear vac suits going over, just in case. We don't want to be stuck aboard that ship and then have the systems go down again, and all suffocate.
The vac suits that y'all have are those classic space opera types where basically
round helmets on top. And
well, it's a jumpsuit. You put the jumpsuit on and you press the button and it comes over, and it's the Mylar layered hoodie over the top of you. So it's not like a combat vac suit. It is bare bones, thin, because you're just meant to get on and off medically.
Cool.
But you're fully covered, and it has a filtration system and the whole deal. So basically, you're going to use your own air, and it has a small air containment, but you don't have big tanks or anything like that. But you're going to recycle your air for a period of time.
Sounds good.
Everybody that's loaded up is loaded up. Because the situation of your ship, everybody's putting their vac suits on, because you don't have the type of ship that you have a separate chamber. You have a small section, but everybody's going to be prepared. So everybody's putting their vac suits on. Everybody loads up. Everybody has at least one. If you don't have vac suit one, someone will help you.
Are we going to wait for the diagnostic information to come back before we board? I would say probably would make sense.
Well,
Yes,
you're ready to...
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Because you said we were about 15 minutes out when you started to boot the ship back up. You said it could take up to an hour. Yeah.
Yep. So let me check that real quick.
There's no sense rushing in blind.
Okay, so you're docked up right now. You're tethered in. The ship is in the process of going through its initializations. It has at least 20 minutes left. So you can wait it out, or you can head over.
Would it be possible for me to get my ship while we're waiting for the big ship to wake up?
Currently, right now, you would have to engage some sort of emergency release, because the access door is now locked on to the other ship.
Okay, I'll wait.
So
I would say to the lieutenant that took over my terminal, the one who took over the link with the other ship, to keep an eye on external sensors too, just in case we get any unexpected guests.
Okay.
If you see anything approaching, make sure you report it to the commanding officer on board immediately.
So you're going to wait the 20 minutes, or you're going to go head over?
I think we should wait the 20 minutes personally. Like
okay,
I said,
you wait.
Caution, it took us 10 and a half, almost 11 days to get here. Yeah. It took us about 11 days to get here. Yeah. So I think, 20 minutes isn't going to make or break the bank.
I completely agree. All right. So you go through the process, and the link shows that the minimums of life support have kicked in, but it does not appear to be going any higher than the minimums. And the engines are not kicking over.
Probably been stripped for parts.
More than likely.
Baron would, he doesn't have the skill, but he would still, as a matter of pride, secure his own backsuit just from his basic knowledge from Jack of all trades. But it takes him a longer time than normal, much longer. He just doesn't want to have to delegate that because, he doesn't want to hurt his pride. But he's clearly uncomfortable in the suit. Okay,
very good. So who all is going over? Because the doors are opening now, and you have to step forward into the tube.
Me.
I think all three of us are going over, and I don't know, Baron, how many other personnel did you want to bring along? Any or?
I would. You said you had assembled 2 teams. I would say bring one of the teams.
Okay, sure. We'll bring the Bravo squad then. That's 3 people.
Right.
Yeah.
People. So Alpha squad will remain, ready to clear out one of those medical bays if we have a medical emergency.
All right. All right. So when you get over there, the doors open up, and it's a freaking horror show. The people are in vac suits. There's a half a dozen people that you can see right there, and they're ripped up. Their faces are torn open. Their eyes are gouged out. There's droplets of blood that had been floating around, but now have dropped in the partial gravity. Again, it's only partial. So it's kind of gooping in little puddles floating just above, and painted the walls. And it's mostly soft tissue damage. And it doesn't appear to be any gunshots or anything like that. But it's cheeks are ripped open, eyeballs are gouged out, skin's torn. And everybody you see is clearly dead. Clearly. I mean, they were not encased in their vac suits. They were wearing the extremities of it, but they weren't sealed in.
So the vac suits were torn, apparently by the same forces that tore their bodies up.
At this point, just looking at them, it does not look like. It looks more like if somebody had ripped open. This looks like trauma, like someone tearing at somebody.
Does it look like they were hurt while wearing the vac suits?
Oh, yes. Yeah, they were wearing their vac suits.
Okay, so I can see, like, for example, like a tear in the vac suit, and under it, I would see the tear in the flesh.
Their suits are pretty much intact. It's up their
Okay.
faces. Their faces are ripped open. Their eyes are torn open. Their
Right,
noses
okay, so
are gouged out.
The part of, like, the helm part is broken, and then the faces are damaged.
What it appears is that the helm parts were not engaged at the point where they couldn't breathe, or they were already dead. They were wearing their vac suits, but had not engaged the helmets.
So they were probably killed before they lost life support. Right. Which one of us is anybody a particularly good medical specialist? I have like one skill point in it.
I have medical 2.
I have medical 3.
Yeah.
Nice.
3 is significant. If you looked at it like a college degree, you know, a 3 would basically be a doctorate.
She's the expert when it comes to medical issues amongst the 3 of us, anyway. So,
Story, can you try to ascertain the cause of death?
Absolutely. I would like to ascertain cause of death.
Okay, you're going to do 2d6. The basic challenge is an 8, and you have a 3. You have +3. Now, because this isn't everybody had to do emergency room sort of stuff. It's not an extreme challenge. It's nothing that I'm going to pressure you. So it's a basic roll. 8 + 3.
It's a 4 and a 6 is a 10 plus a 3 is a 13.
Okay. It looks as if, say, somebody had been on bath salts or something of the likes, or a crocodile or something, and they had ripped their own faces and gouged their own eyes out.
Oh. Okay, well, I will relay that information.
Clearly, the fingers and the hands still have tissue and blood on them. So the blood is concentrated around the head and the gore, and the bodies are pretty much intact. Just the hands show clear ripping and tearing and so forth.
They've got like flesh underneath their nails, etc. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they got their gloves on from the suits, but yeah, they've torn away at themselves.
Even with the gloves on. Ooh, brutal.
I will advise everyone to keep our vac suits on and sealed, because this could be a microbial thing. This could be something that was an infection through the air, and we just restarted that system. So I highly recommend keeping them on.
Would I be able to scan for any kind of contaminants in the air?
Absolutely. Everybody would have a tricorder in context.
Any kind of psychotropics or anything of that sort, anything that might cause this kind of behavior.
Absolutely. And I would sorry?
Go ahead.
No, say what you're going to say?
No, I would just be like thinking hard and trying to remember from my medical knowledge if I ever heard of anything like this before.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that could have done this, mostly like psychotropic drugs and nerve agents and shit like that was used in warfare. And again, like things like bath salts and drugs that went bad. So like you might have had an individual case of this or a batch of it, like on a mining colony where they got a batch of bad recreational drugs and a dozen people died by this gruesome way. They cleared the drugs out, it went away, that sort of thing. But as far as like...
Would I have heard of anything environmental? Or just either people were attacked or they took something?
The only thing that would have been close to this is if like 0G or something like that, where it actually blew the parts off. But these were definitely torn. They ripped themselves apart.
But okay.
Everybody's got their... Go ahead.
I would say if I could make the suggestion to Phoebe, maybe she'd be better off scanning for this kind of infectants better than me because she has better medical knowledge. And what I would do in that case then is see if I can get into the ship's logs and see if I can find anything there. Be it personal logs or even like navigational logs, maybe I can see where they were headed, etc. Just try to gather some electronic information of that sort.
All you have to do is break the code to get into them because it's not the same corporation. They'll have different codes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So normally it would just be an 8 if it was a normal challenge, but it's not. So we're going to say -3, and you have a computer 1.
So that brings it to a -2.
right? And then you can try your jack of all trades for
I might
this.
as well.
Yep.
Yeah, I got a 8 + 3, so 11.
Okay. So you have +2,
So I'm at a -1 total.
-1,
On
8 or better.
computers. Okay, I'll roll it. Nope, I fail.
Okay. When you go to try the same thing again, which you will, you'll be at an additional -1 for cumulative effect.
Right.
And because it was a jack of all trades challenge sort of thing, you won't be able to access that again.
I have a proposition, although I know it'll take a little more time, John, so it might knock me out of commission for a few rounds. I think maybe I would have better luck if I tried to access it from the bridge somewhere that has secure access.
Yeah, they might have left something on. Good call. Yeah.
So I'm going to try to make my way to the bridge. I'll recommend to the Baron that I would like to try to go to the bridge to access the logs. I can't do it from here.
Right. Take Cochrane with you. I'll take the other 2 and go in the opposite direction and check the rest of the ship.
You can just leave Phoebe here by herself?
I need to explore more of the ship to see if this was an isolated incident or if anything in particular was the cause of this mayhem.
Well, maybe you'd like to come to the bridge with us. You might be able to
I will join you on
better
the
access.
bridge.
Yeah. Okay.
Quick question, John. Like, is this ship also like a tube like ours, or is it?
Almost all the ships are going to be, the smaller ships are all going to be shotgun. They're all going to be straight line. You shoot up and down the line, and you have your little cabins and so forth, and shops on the side.
Great.
The only time,
in that case, we'd be basically covering the other 2 entrances to this area because we'd each be going in an opposite direction, and it's just the hatch.
Right. Okay. So between all of you and communicating and so forth, when you find 13 people total, all ripped apart, exact same situations.
Red flag.
Yeah, vomit and stuff like that. And then when you get to the bridge you have access to it because everything was rebooted. It went to a rebooted stage, and in the rebooted stage, it has a safe mode, as you would if you're like rebooting your computer. So you're in safe mode. So you don't have access to everything, but you do have instant access to preliminary stuff. So you don't even need to check against that. From that place, you can access the main lines and the computers. No personal logs, nothing like that, but you can definitely access everything that's required or would be necessary for the ship to re-engage and be available.
Well, in that event, then I would probably first try to see why the engines won't fire and why the ship seems to be low on power since it can't get above low power gravity and life support.
Okay. The mechanical information that's coming across, while you may not understand all of it, there's at least 13, 14 red flags for the engine room. There's all kinds of things that it's failing to check to continue to the next stage.
Where did you say you were headed, Baron?
Engine room.
Perfect. Okay, good. I'll report to him anyway that obviously I'm getting a lot of red flags from the engine room. There seem to be a lot of problems down there. Keep us abridged the situation.
When you get to the engine area, it's all this type of technology is all plug and play. So all of these lights are lit up and require an action to fix it. So either you got to replace a part or you have to press a button in a sequence to get it to re-engage. And we're looking at mechanic 2. More than likely, we'll just say the guy's with you as a mechanic and he can access it. So I will check. And he can go through the stages. It definitely looks like, in his case, he's thinking sabotage. He doesn't think it's going to be able to get it going quickly.
Does with the safe mode up here and the bridge going on, does Phoebe have access to the system she needs to do her checks?
What were the checks you wanted to do again?
Really, do I have any? I assume I have like some portable scanner or something where I can look at various bodily fluids and various injuries, and I want to see what was in their systems, like in their body systems, and see if there was anything like an infection or something that might have also caused this behavior.
Like a medical tricorder.
Right. Okay, so in the process of doing these 3 things, we can't fix the engines at this point, not quickly anyway. And we want to try to get information out of the system, and we want to get medical checks. So I will look at We were at -2. So we need, we'll do, Ian's character will do one more computer check at -2.
Okay.
8 or better at -2.
I didn't get any kind of bonus for going to the bridge.
That by going to the bridge, I took away another minus already, but you have the one.
Okay, cool. Nope, just checking.
It's just, this is a one-time cumulative thing.
No problem. Ooh, I rolled a 3, so that's a 1, John.
It's just because the system, it's not you. The system's messed up. So what we're going to do is, do you have any kind of anything that would be for repair? Anything you can apply for repair?
I've got electronics.
Okay. So we're going to do, there's no negatives to it. It's a straight electronics roll for 8 or better at +1.
No, again, I got a 5.
Okay, it's just the ship. It's the ship. It's not you.
No,
all right, so
I got thick skin. It's all good. I just can't do it. I understand. It's not working.
Phoebe is now checking the medical information.
I'm sorry, Captain. I'm giving it all she's got.
He's dead, Jim.
Because you are not doing anything from the system, you're doing it from your own. There's no negatives. So you're scraping a sample or sticking a probe in or whatever you're doing to one of these bodies, and you're doing a check, and it's doing the analysis. And I don't even need a roll for it because it's an automatic thing. Now, it's going to take time for a detailed analysis, but and they're cold. I mean, they're ice cold because they have been in ice cold. So the information you're getting is, you know, the necrotic tissue and so forth like that. It's going to require a lot more, but you're looking for anything that's active, and it doesn't show anything. There's no red flags coming up yet. It's showing definitely necrotic tissue and requesting if you wanted to continue with autopsy type of things, because it's no longer in a not a healing mode. It's an autopsy mode.
Yeah, I definitely want to continue on an autopsy mode for sure.
All right, now that's going to take time. Now, typically we would figure an hour to 2 hours for a standard autopsy. So I would say 10 minutes at the most for a full autopsy and 1 minute for a flash autopsy.
Okay. We'll do a full autopsy. I can spare 10 minutes.
Okay, so we're going to continue on with that. So we're back to
what I'd like to do during is I've left, you know, our boy Cochrane basically taking care of these two, and I want to use the other two. I want to say there's a lady named White and a man by the name of Jameson, and I assume we've already pulled the manifest, so I want to have them check everything on the ship, basically do a search, see if there's anything that they find that wasn't on the manifest, see what was used, basically do an inventory / search. And while they're doing that, I want to do the same, but I want to check specifically for anything that was brought on this ship clandestinely, using maybe streetwise or something. Like, I want to check the places where I know people would hide stuff, and I want to have my 2 men check the places where things will be kept like on the level. But I want to, while I'm searching, I want to check those places.
Alrighty. So, well, you have Streetwise 1.
Yep.
All right. So what we're going to do is, if you had like Streetwise 3, then you'd be a real nefarious kind of sneaky dude. But you're smart and you have that. So we're going to do a one-time check, and it's a pass or fail. And we're just looking for
Jack of all trades 1 if I can use it. If not, that's fine.
Now you would need multiples in Jack of all trade to bypass into the other. That would be like if you had no Streetwise, then you could use the Jack of all trades for a 1 to give you it, but you already have a 1. So it's 8 or better with +1.
I got a total 9.
Okay. So what you find is that the captain's cabin would be the most likely for what you're looking for, because he's, you know, going to be the major shareholder. And you don't find anything in a quick search as far as like, well, this is where I would hide something, this is where I hide something. But you do find a personal log that is like the risk type log that was left behind, and that they did find a major cache of iron ore, hard carbon, and industrial diamonds on the asteroids. Looking somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 billion. in resources.
So checking with the other two, with the lady and the man, with White and Jameson, would they have found anything on the ship that would have been likely to have caused like the state? Like, did they find any drugs or anything funny?
With the quick look, no, it appears to be just a typical ship. The ship itself isn't in terrible order. The personal effects, people's individual rooms, are in complete disarray, as in, like, you know, just shit was just thrown around. And again, you had 0G for a long period of time. But beyond that, it looks like there was a lot of frantic searching, or that sort of action of a searching action in individual small Now, these are small little cubbies with all their personal effects. But it definitely looks like everything was ransacked at some point. So it just makes
looks to me like people might have, if they did it themselves, then they might have been freaking out before they killed themselves.
That's what it definitely looks like.
Right.
It looks like there was a stage of freaking out and then tearing at their own faces.
Anything valuable on the ship itself? Supply-wise and stuff?
Just the fact that it is a ship. Unfortunately, at the end of their 6 months, their personal supplies are running low. Their resources were running low. The actual engine room itself is damaged. Some of the controls are damaged, but nothing too dramatic. I mean, most of the stuff is digital and touchpad, so there really wasn't a lot of levers or anything to break. The actual communications gear is damaged in that the excess parts and pieces and the mics and all that were ripped out. So as far as like salvage, the ship has some value itself. If it was, you know, if you had some way of getting it back, your ship's not equipped for as a salvage. Now, in this particular case, based on the scout information and your ship's information, to salvage it, you would mark it for the corporation. You would include everybody that's on your manifest, because everybody gets a share. And you basically mark it as a flag. Since everybody's dead that you've seen so far, the ship is salvageable, and it's salvaged in the name of your corporation. And then you get a percentage. So at that point, a message is sent and a salvage ship or a salvage operation would be sent. So anybody else that came in afterwards, they have no reason to approach the ship. And if they approach the ship, they're noted as pirates.
What about the bodies themselves? Is there any kind of reward involved in salvaging those, you know, for proper burial, return to the families, etc.? So there's 13 bodies, right?
Yeah, I would imagine, you know, you're looking at like 1,000 credits a piece, you know, for family rights and so forth like that. But you're looking at billions in resources. So at this point, the company man, or the company woman in this case, would claim the asteroids and the ship. She's already in the process of doing it. You don't got to tell her. She's already writing the paperwork up. She's already sending the transmissions out. Doesn't require your input whatsoever, because this is her job.
On that note, can we check and see, is there already a claim placed on behalf of Kanmar?
Had there been, it would have been as part of the transmission. It would not have been an emergency beacon.
Okay, that's why I wanted to make sure. So I thought maybe they came here, claimed it for salvage, and then they all went nuts or something. So
no, you now turn the beacon off, and you turn a salvage beacon on, and the salvage beacon sends out your information and your company's information, so that if anybody else approaches it, then they're recorded. They're noted as pirates. Unless they're cops, of course, you know, like sheriffs and marshals and so forth.
Sure.
Military.
Is there any reason then for us to take these bodies back aboard, or should we just leave them here? I guess would be my question. And I'd be referring this question to both Baron and Phoebe. Phoebe being the medical expert, and Baron, of course, being in charge.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
I'm just wondering if there's any value in us taking these bodies back aboard our ship, or should we leave them here? You might be able to do a better, more intensive study, full autopsy in one of our medical bays, for example. I don't know, but
I'm not. I want to identify what this is first because I also don't want to put our own crew at risk. Once I've identified kind of what the source was, then I think we'll be okay.
Right. Should we have more medical equipment perhaps brought aboard this ship from our ship?
Yeah, I would say so. You know, I don't need everything, but I need basic equipment.
Set up a medical lab, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other crew that have been assigned to search the area has found something. They have a container, and in the container is a collection of what appears to be crude diamonds. None of y'all are geologists, but it's a crystal type stone, and the actual containment unit is open.
I suppose that has to go on the report and falls under the salvage rights, yeah?
Yeah, I would imagine so. But I mean, could we like take one each for ourselves and not report it?
That
Maybe?
would be illegal, Phoebe.
What?
I mean, we're not pirates.
We're not pirates. I mean, we're reporting everything else, and I'm not saying a big one. Just saying.
And I mean, you know, if Lieutenant Butt Nugget over there was able to find this box of diamonds, I think any pirates who would have hit this ship would have found that as well. So I mean, it helps to consolidate the fact or the information that no pirates actually raided this ship. But
all right, so at this point, your flash or your 10-minute autopsy comes back, and the only thing that has found is that there was definitely evidence of high fever, and endorphins, massive endorphins were released, which would explain the frantic behavior. Mm-hmm. Near psychotropic activity, most likely as accumulated from the fever. Mm-hmm. And millions of microscopic crystals in the bloodstream that ended up focusing and getting caught in the bloodstream of the brain. So the brain is loaded up with tiny microcrystals.
Can I get a visual on the crystals? Can I like enhance my little portable screen and see if I can find them, or will I have to do like a more intense autopsy in order?
No, you can do it. They definitely look like crystals. Do
they match the crystals that we just found?
The crystals that are in the diamond type material that's in the container, it's huge. Yeah. It's like a.
Of course it is, but does it have the same chemical composition or the same, you know?
Does it match? Do I need to suddenly close the crystal box?
Maybe.
I'm going to say, hey, son, close the lid of that diamond type material box for me, please.
Of course.
It's actually broken. The containment's broken, so you'd have to find it. Now there are other containers. I mean, it's not like a secret. There are the containers, so you'd have to transfer it.
Okay. Well, I will get. I can't remember the name of the guy, but I'll get the lieutenant to help me do that.
James, right? Yeah.
James. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So that crystal piece is done. The other ship, your main ship, the Hermes, contacts you. They had been searching the area while you were there. The pilot and the navigator located the probe ship from the survey ship, and it was on one of the asteroids. It was off to the dark side of the asteroid. So there is a small ship just off 700 yards away, 500, 800 yards away, but it's out of view behind a rock, big rock. It's not moving or anything. It's dead in the water. So yes, the crystal is the same type of crystal that's in the big one.
Yeah, I don't.
You don't disclose that information?
No, I definitely do. I'm like, well, the crystal that's been lodged in their brain is the same as the crystal that's in the box. And I suddenly don't want to be anywhere near it anymore. I don't want one. I don't think anybody should have this. This is not great.
We should find a way to quarantine them here on the ship then. Just so there's no risk. And of course, put it in the report so that the salvage team knows what they're walking into?
I'm actually going to page Baron, and I'm going to say, "Hey," because I have an idea. Because I imagine Baron relayed that it looked like sabotage to us.
That last
I'm
bit
sorry.
again.
Can you repeat the question? Cut out a little.
Oh, sure. Did you relay the fact that you thought this was sabotage?
That came across everybody shared that. Everybody knows that it was sabotage.
Okay, so we all know that the engines were sabotaged, right?
Yeah. That was all. It was all shared information.
Okay. I don't know if there would be a way to check. I asked Baron to, I guess, can he or the guy who did the mechanical bit, can either one of them identify what exactly was sabotage, and if a crystal-like dust is anywhere in that room?
Oh no! The sabotage was basically anything that could be grabbed or clutched at was pulled out. So like if you imagine a panel that had like a dozen modules pulled into it, they were yanking out the modules.
Right.
Right.
Pulling
Right,
out
so
cables,
it's more
etc.
a result
Exactly.
of, okay. My concern was that one of the crystals had gotten like superheated and exploded and gotten into the air system somehow, which is still a possibility, just not through there. Okay, well, I think we have the source of this madness. Now we just need to quarantine it and not take off our vac suits at all for any reason.
Of course, we should go through extensive decontamination procedures as well before we're allowed back into our ship.
Okay, so we're now to the point of doing routine, mundane things of a nature you are already trained for. If you want to do something otherwise in a role playing manner, let me know. And other than that, we'll do the checks.
So what I would like to do is pull from the ship before we are done with it, all the black box data, quote unquote, and also all the personal logs for all the crew to see if I can piece this together and see what the hell happened here.
Good
as
luck.
Far as, yeah, I know. But if there's anything, I'll find it. Anything of that sort.
I could always try hacking it.
Yeah,
Those
exactly.
logs are tacked away like the Queen's jewels.
One of Phoebe's friends from the ship, one of her two friends, wink, wink. They have quite a bit of hacking experience, we'll say.
Excellent.
And they can get into the system via the digital link without an issue. And Lieutenant James did mention that probably it would a good idea not to bring anything from the ship onto your ship other than digital.
Right. Then, yeah, it would all be digital, just copies, basically.
Yeah. One of the people on board is an actual hacker, so she gets in without an issue.
Perfect.
Easy peasy. So
Sunny feels
you go
so
through.
inadequate.
No, not at all. Your Sunny is extremely well-rounded, whereas these individuals are like the Navy guy. He was just Navy.
Oh no! I just realized I'm the bard.
I think y'all are almost all the clerics. Almost instead, it's like a party of clerics. But the one that's a hacker, basically, she's just a hacker and a cargo specialist. She really can't do anything else. Can't fly a ship. Can't drive anything. It's just relies on her jack of all trades one to get by in life.
Fair play to her.
Anyway, and most of these people would only have half of your skill sets. Right. They don't have this. They don't have the same thing. I mean, they're still good, but they're almost all focused. They stayed on one path, whereas you have more of a variety.
Is it safe to say most of them are younger than us, or
they're most of them are a little bit younger in actual years, but most of them aren't retired. Most of them are still in the process of being merchants.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was thinking. Cool.
So and you'll find that most of the people are competent, but your player character types are the ones that want to do more than just be a medic. They want to do more than just be a pilot.
Right.
That's why
we've already gone down our career paths, and now we're branching out. And
almost no one switches branches. They stay where they are. They start as an other. They go in the Navy. They're in the Navy. They get kicked out. They go to the others. They're in the Scouts for their entire life. They're in the Marines until they die. That sort of thing. It's just they don't really switch around. Player characters switch around.
Yep.
Okay, so in the process of clearing everything out, you've got the personal logs. You know, there's nothing secret. There were 3 samples. The other 2 samples were sealed away. They were found. The small scout ship, or the probe ship, had 2 other individuals on it. They were all ripped apart, loaded up with crystals. There were crystals all in that ship. They had a whole bunch of them where they were collecting them.
Phoebe, were you able to get IDs on all of these bodies?
For sure.
Could I have identified these bodies?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because it seemed odd to me that there were 13 people on this ship when it had a maximum crew complement of 12.
Traditionally, they would have at least 12.
Well, maximum. Oh, tradition. I thought you said that was a max. I apologize.
Their typical crew payout was 12.
Okay, okay.
But they had 15.
It was a red flag that went off in my head when you said it, and then I forgot about it 2 minutes later when you said something else. So.
No, they had 15 on board that you could see so far.
Okay, cool. So they were all anyway, like probably meant to be here, etc. So
I do want to try to identify these people.
Yeah, they're all identifiable as far as DNA. You can't identify them by their faces or dentals because they're just all torn up. But it's easy enough. A simple little probe, and when you stuck the probe in and they did the autopsy, it pulled up who it was.
Okay.
So there's nothing secret. So at this point, you've decontaminated. You're in the tube between ships. You're decontaminating one at a time. You go through, and each person goes through, and it's decontaminating as much as your procedures allow for decontamination.
I assume being a medical ship, we'd have pretty decent decontamination procedures.
Very good decontamination, and maybe even some protocols that are more so than others because you were going into a frontier area. So the Hammersmith Industries might have had something that other ones don't. And you press the red button before you go out for that extra little bit of love that maybe takes a year off your life, but it makes you, completely clean, right? And, you gotta balance this sort of stuff out. So you each individually make it off the ship. You get back on the other side. You've left the bodies. You left all the crystals, left everything behind. The only thing you brought over is what you came over with.
And data.
And data. Tons of data. Okay. So where you're at now is you have a claim for the Hammersmith Industries for the Zodiac. And that comes in at 15 million. All the bodies, 15 bodies. And you don't actually put a claim in for the bodies. You put a humanitarian marker for them. And of course, Hammersmith owns them until they are fully cleared, autopsy and so forth, and sent back to the families as cremated and so forth. The carbon and iron and the crude diamonds are listed at a minimum of 4 billion, and that's listed for the company. And the data doesn't have a numerical value. It is data as it is. So we're just going to call it 4.5 billion is the neighborhood of what we're looking at the claim. So typically you want to do 15%. So we're just going to call it 5. 5 billion is the claim that we're sending for Hammersmith. The company lady has sent it and it has been acknowledged. Everybody on the manifest has been included. So your percentages are based upon your rank and your position with the company. And so, the lowly purser gets 1 share and the captain gets 3 shares, that sort of thing. Anyway, the claims are not an automatic thing as far as like payout. It's something that you get later on as a recompense. And now you are free and clear of that situation. And you have access to the data that they had. And you find that they found these crude diamonds. They were very excited because they found another vein of crystals, an unidentified crystal within the diamond structure, within the iron and carbon shell of the rocks. And when they tapped into that vein, they found that it was reactive to energy. So when they shined lights on it, it reacted and it grew. And then they found through a series of experiments that things went bad. Containment was breached for whatever reason. It wasn't acknowledged what it was. Something went bad. It got out. They closed it back up. No problem. And then it became a problem. People started going nuts. And then shit went to hell immediately. So that's where it left off. So that's what you have to work with right now. So in the case of the situation, you have no reason to stay unless you want to, but you're on company time now. You're losing 20,000 a day that you stay. So if you stay behind, it's because you're willing to accept any further losses and delays. But because the company woman has already sent the memo ahead, you are officially on company time. So if you choose to stay, you can definitely stay. No one's going to stop you, but it's costing you money.
I think we're good to go. I do want to make a note that my ship, the Gladius, is not for salvage. I am going to pick that up later after it has been deeply decontaminated.
Oh,
Yeah,
no, your ship, the Gladius, was attached to the outer hull of our ship.
Yeah, definitely. It hasn't been detached. It's on your
brought along with us, our ship.
Got it.
I think you misunderstood that. Yeah.
No, it wasn't attached to their ship. It was attached to your
That's
ship.
why you said, "What are you doing here?"
I was wondering. I was like, why do you want to get that so bad? I was like, oh, well.
Okay.
No, they didn't steal your ship. Your ship is on the outside of this ship.
Good to know. Never mind.
Funny.
Sorry, y'all.
Well, I mean, Baron's in charge. Is Baron the captain?
The Baron is the ipso facto captain.
Actually, I know Baron is his rank, but I keep referring to it like his name, basically, since he wants us to call him Baron in front of the other crew members anyway. So
he's the highest ranking person, and because he is a noble, he is the captain, but the actual operations captain of the ship is Lieutenant James.
Oh. The one with asthma, huh?
Yep.
The one we both have secrets on.
Very good.
So there's one thing that I'd like to do, and as we return to the ship, I'm the last one to go through decontamination, which is very unlike me. I'm usually the first to go through a door because of my rank and so on. But I seem to be kind of quiet and pensive. And after a little while, I would go, when we're back on the ship, I would go over and have a private little talk with company woman Smith.
Yes.
And I would say, I know you sent the memo, but there's a more detailed report to be filled later. And, I know you're trying to move up in the company. You're a little bit younger than myself and the other specialists here. Of course, you're going to get your share for all of this that we've discovered. However, I was thinking that maybe you'd like a little informal prize, perhaps? Some bragging rights.
She says, I'm not really into guys, so I'm not sure where you're going with this.
This is what I mean. When you tell the story later, and I can corroborate. Matter of fact, I can put it in the long, detailed report. I can tell the company that you were part of the boarding party. It's nothing on paper. I mean, you'll get the same share, but it's bragging rights. And if you're looking to move up, it's a show of initiative. These kinds of informal commendations count when you're thinking about your career. And if I corroborate it, considering my family's connections to Hammersmith, it would help you out a little bit. Think about it as a story you tell the others when you're playing golf. Those kinds of things go a long way. What do you say?
She acquiesces, and of course, absolutely. I take any input that you give, and any letters of commendation would be well accepted. Clearly, she's rubbing you, just to get you going, because she has her own agenda. But she smiles through the whole process. it's all political juggling at this point. But yes, absolutely. I think that what you're saying makes perfect sense.
I'm always happy to help a fellow expeditioner, and I will say no more. I mean, it will all be unspoken. Obviously, I accept that like a tit for tat later, but I'm not even going to mention it because it's uncouth.
Gotcha. Okay, so basically, right now, y'all are going to leave and head back to the planet, to your destination, which was off planet for the hospital. Yes. Okay. So we're heading back out. I'm just going to do a series of checks to make sure you get there without issue. Make sure pirates don't capture you or anything like that. The basic claim rights that you get, in addition to the $1 million that you get for coming back, of course, just from this one episode, this one claim, you're looking at a shared between your crew, whichever crew makes it back, of 14.5 million. So you're going to share between that for this one activity.
Amazing. So good. Such a good risk.
Yeah. Okay,
so let me do my checks real quick. And you were 10 days out. You were not 10 days out. It took you 10 days, almost 11 days to get there because you had issues. So it's 9 days if you go back fast. Were you going to take the 14-day slow route, or are you going to try to press the issue and get there quicker, again, as you did coming here?
I'd go pretty quick, especially since we're on company time now.
I'll defer to the Baron's judgment.
I would take the middle road, like not full speed, but faster than before.
Okay, so we'll shoot for 11. 11 days. Check. Okay, so it takes you 12 days total to get there with issues that came up. Instead of the 14 with issues, which have been 16 in context. And you approach without issue. You're met a day out, and they stop you and the day out and do a full decon from the outside of the ship in first. And this is a specialized survey ship from the Hammersmith that's appearing for you, and they have processes that you do not have. And they check out the whole ship. They send one individual over, probe first. Probe goes through, checks everybody out, checks out the situation, checks out the cargo. Person comes in, and it takes a full day to go through this whole process before you're cleared. So just another day, which you do get charged. And then you're able to carry on. They do not escort you. They continue on, and obviously they're heading out towards the Zodiac and the situation. You find out that Hammersmith is sending 2 other crews in through the gate to deal with the Zodiac. So they're going to go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just want to tell them to not take the crystals, or if they do, to keep them in.
They have your full report.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this is all these people do is survey stuff. So these are salvage people. They're super cautious, and they already know about all the deaths and everything else. So it'll be a total of 3 ships going to deal with the salvage and the mineral rights, of course. All right, so you get to the hospital without too much incident. They know nothing. All they know is that there was a distress. They know that Zodiac was in the area 3 months ago, and they hadn't heard anything. They assumed the Zodiac went on through. They got the alerts. So the only people that know anything are Hammersmith and high-ranking military that are over there for security. But again, there's not a lot of military on this other side. It's a few, 1 or 2 Navy ships with their Marines. So the security officer and the captain and the XO would know. But as far as general people, they do not know. So whatever story you want to tell, it's up to you. But keep in mind, you are working for Hammersmith, and you're under contract. So
if anybody asks me any questions, just say, I'm sorry, but that's classified information that I'm not, you know, cleared to share.
Fair enough.
I will also be tight-lipped unless someone is willing to pay me significant amounts of money in order to reveal anything.
True. Now the crew. Okay. So you get to the hospital ship, you transfer all your goods. Now your ship's, butt empty. You're completely empty. And the three of you are off the ship. You can take your small scout ship with you, your pod, and you can go to the hospital ship. It's fairly luxurious compared to what you had to deal with to get here. Open spaces. Everybody's got their own office, their own room. Of course, the Baron has a bigger room or two rooms, and maybe even a servant. And then you have duties that you have to step forward. It's not like free adventuring. You're actually here to do a job. So you initiate your normal routines of fixing broken bones, radiation burns, and that sort of thing, and accounting for company losses, company profits, and so forth like that medically. Because again, if somebody injures themselves and they did it through no issue of their own, then it's not a problem. But if they did something out of a fault of their own, they get charged for it. So you have to account for all that for the corporation. So at this point, we're going to call the adventure for this one because there is no cliffhanger for this. You made it through the cliffhanger. So you definitely get the 14-5 split between your crew. The ship is going to leave. The Hermes is going to leave you, and they're taking a batch of materials and so forth, samples and so forth of a non-malicious nature back with them, because now they're in a cargo process. They were a medical cargo in, now there's stuff going back out. And there'll be another ship coming for you at the 5-month mark to bring you back for your 6-month mark.
So currently we're assigned to this hospital ship.
It's a small station.
Hospital station. It's a hospital station though, yeah?
Yeah, it's an actual station, a small
space
station with a hospital wing, and you all are in the hospital wing.
Now
they have doctors.
Do you have a name for the station?
I don't. You could call it X5.
Okay.
But the station, the hospital has doctors on board and has medical personnel on board. What you're there to do is represent Hammersmith's interests as basically like paramedics, because you're scouts and medical personnel. So if they had an issue, you would get in a small ship with a doctor and a medic, and you would go out with them to bring people back or to deal with situations. Basically, you're more like an ambulance crew at this. You're not actual doctors at this one. They have actual doctors.
Is this station in orbit of a planet, or is it in an orbit of the star?
It's in orbit of a moon of that planet. There is a single planet, habitable planet, and there's an asteroid belt, but there's only one planet. There's like small planetoids and small moons and so forth like that, but one habitable planet. And by habitable, we don't mean a perfect atmosphere. It means that we can work with it.
What's the name of the planet?
Hold on one second. I had it written down. 1 second.
Or even the system, etc.
Yeah, I didn't have one for the system. It's an unknown system. So it was just Clover is what I had written down. I was trying to come up with something clever, but the planet's been named as Clover.
You just replaced one of the O's with an E, or one of the E's with an O, and called it Clover?
Yeah, clever. Yeah, nice. No, what I was working on it, that it was heavily vegetated, but the vegetation wasn't edible.
Cool.
So it was something. So it has like its fields of clover. So it's fairly flat, and most of the moisture is trapped in the atmosphere rather than on the ground.
Awesome.
So it's covered in mists and fogs and all that.
I just wanted to take some notes for the end of the session so I can look back and see where we left off.
Absolutely.
Obviously, I can go back and watch the video, but yeah. Cool. Well, thanks for running the game, John. I really enjoyed this, and I look forward to doing some more.
Yeah, so did I.
It's my first time ever playing Traveler.
Really cool. It kind of made me attached to this character right off the bat.
Right?
It is really cool character creation, yeah.
the life path is a lot of fun, and you did the very basic, absolute bare bones, because
Sure.
in the more extensive ones, when they had new versions, it wasn't like D&D version 2 to 3.5 or anything like that. They didn't change everything; they added to it.
They just expanded.
So, yeah. So within the little black books came another book like the Citizens of the Imperium, and it introduced another dozen character options that you could go between, like rogue and diplomat and bureaucrat and assassin, and there were all these, like hunter, big game hunter. There's all these different things you could go, these different paths, safari. So what I would do in the future, if you all wanted to do it, because I know you wanted to experience the original Traveler as it was, I would do the expanded Traveler and give all the options and give you more of a distinct path, because then you could do the, you started off, did one tour in the Navy and then 3 tours as a scout, and then and then you go and you become a big game hunter or a safari leader or something like that, and it takes a completely different path and goes a different direction. You can be an entertainer, you can be an actual celebrity, and that's when you can flip that social status into a celebrity status.
Nice.
There are a lot of different paths, so we could definitely keep these characters alive, and they're doing their tour, and we could introduce others and just stay in the other system, or we could deal with this system, and we can introduce the other character types without doing any damage to these characters. That's what I'm saying. The new versions didn't change anything, and it didn't come up, but the way that does combat is really interesting. Let's say that one of y'all got shot, and you got hit for, let's say it was a shotgun, and it did 3d6. Damage is pretty horrific in this game. You notice you didn't have any hit points.
I was just going to say, I don't have a hit point stat. So.
Right. Here's what you do. Let's say that you get shot wearing your vac suit and your cloth. Vac suit and cloth is going to absorb 3. So you got hit for 12 points of damage. Take 3 off the top. So you got 9 points of damage you got to take. You choose where you apply the damage to your strength, dexterity, and endurance.
Ooh.
And you tick away at your physical self. And the way you heal it is you get those back one at a time. So you could take it all off in strength, which reduces your strength or your dexterity. So you usually take a little bit off of each, right? So having a good strength, dexterity, and endurance is effective later in the game because that's how damage is applied. But intelligence, social status, education is very effective for keeping you alive in the character creation. So right off the bat, there's no dump stats. All of your stats have value. Social status allows you to get promoted into different ranks. Your intelligence keeps you alive. And even as a Marine, your intelligence will keep you alive. So it's really interesting that early on in the 77, that it took a completely different path to what D&D was doing. It's so dramatically different.
Yeah.
And the life path gives you ownership to your character, and you want to keep that character alive, and you want to build the character narratively as you go.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I love it. And you can tell, you can really see the geekiness or the nerdiness in it. What did you say UPP was? Universal personal profile or personality profile?
Personality profile, right.
It's recorded in hexadecimal, if you know.
Exactly. And if you get into the game, as a lot of people did, like if you wanted to hollow out an asteroid and make it into a ship, we say, well, this asteroid is a certain amount of size. You have to keep it a certain size, and you can use, let's say, 300,000 square feet of the inside of it. Well, to put the thrusters and the engines on it, you need 100,000. So that leaves you 200,000. And for atmospheres, costs you 15,000. So you have all these components that you got to work in as pods and fill up, and it tells you how much space you got left. And people will calculate where they're going to put everything and how things will work as far as like that. You want to put a gun on there, it requires it. And if you want to do your ship movement and your ship travel and your ship combat, there's a little bit of math involved for slowing down and turning and slingshotting off the planets and stuff. That's all in the game if you wanted to go that direction.
Awesome. Well, you can definitely count me in for future games. I mean, if you want to do this monthly or bi-weekly or just whenever we can schedule it, I would definitely like to play again.
Oh, definitely. I would love to do it monthly for sure, at least monthly.
Yeah,
and
that'd be really awesome.
and get more people in. And I would definitely like to get people to try the life path creation, even if they don't play, just so we can try to defeat that whole stupid death in character creation concept.
I almost died in character creation.
But it says right there in the first book from 1977 that death does not mean you have to die. It means it's traumatic experience that can result in loss of employment or being kicked out of the service and can physically damage you. And typically what I'll do is I will damage the character in a way, like you lose your eye, your arm, and your leg, and it's replaced with an artificial arm and leg.
In fairness, in my experience, I mean, we made my character, and granted, it was going slow because you had to explain things to me as we went along. We made my character in 20 minutes before the game started.
Right.
So it's not like it takes hours to make a character like in a Palladium system or something of that sort.
If somebody had it in front of them,
and I doubt very much you'd have more, even if you did have a character die, it's not like you're going to lose 2 in a row or something. You know what I mean? Like,
it would be, I've never seen it happen. I've never, it's always been something that you could work into, like a Marine on his 3rd or 4th tour, and he does that. You have this traumatic thing happen. You're not in the Marines anymore.
Sure, give him a cybernetical limb or
but now
something.
you've got, you've got this cool artificial arm and leg.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
And now, but you get reputation, you get story, you get all that. Like I was describing to Kate, the recruiter from the movie Starship Troopers, it was missing the arm and the 2 legs, right? He's somebody that died in character creation, but he didn't die. He just he's missing arms and legs, so he's got to put his mechanical arms and legs on.
That's a really good example.
So death truly means just traumatic experience. That's all that really means.
Awesome.
I love it.
Anyway, we lost Ignacio. So
yeah, he said he had to go to lunch with his wife. So
yep.
And you're going out with your wife, right?
Yep. Yeah, we got a big concert to go to.
Happy anniversary to you. And
thank you.
I'm going to stop the broadcast now. Thanks to anybody who stuck with us through all that. I know we had about a half hour to 45 minutes or something of introduction at the beginning, but I think it was really relevant. It was really good stuff. It was cool to set the kind of setting up, you know?
I will say that if you're watching this and you have said, you know, I have some passing interest in Traveler, you just catch up with me at any time and we'll sit down in a hangout and make a character so you can see how the process works, whether you play or not.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun doing it. It's a lot of fun to make characters with this because it's so different and it's so old. People just can't even relate. And there's no other game like this in the market, even today. It's Traveler stands alone as no one's tried to use the mechanics for something else. They've cloned it to make their own version of Traveler, but there's nobody that has done anything like Pathfinder, copied D&D or anything like that. So if you want to try it, I am happy to sit down with anybody on a hangout and work out a character.
Awesome. Well, on that note, then I will stop the broadcast. But thanks for running the game, John.
Thanks,
Y'all
John.
have a great